Chapter 907. In the history of the barbarian tribe, there were 7 kinds of divine powers that could awaken the young barbarian lord from among the thousands of barbarians and allow him to inherit the position of barbarian ancestor. The barbarian summoning art was one of the fiercest of them all. According to some ancient records, among the 7 berserker progenitors, the 2nd and 5th progenitors were the most skilled in this art. This technique was divided into 3 levels: low, medium, and high. Once a person was struck by a low-level berserker summoning art, the blood in their body would burn away bit by bit. There was a 1 in 1,000 chance that they would be able to create the blood of the berserker ancestor. If they failed, their blood would be greatly damaged. Once a person was struck by a middle-rank berserker summoning art, they would fall into a deep sleep for 10,000 years. When they woke up, there was a 1 in 100 chance that they would be able to create the blood of the berserker ancestors. If they failed, they would lose all their power. A barbarian mark would appear on one's body after being hit by a high-grade barbarian summoning art. This barbarian mark was a fortuitous encounter, but also a dangerous one. The berserker mark was as tempting as poppies to any berserker beast. Once someone was hit by a high-level barbarian summoning art, all the wild beasts in the wilderness would go mad. They would do everything in their power to kill the person who was hit by the barbarian summoning art. That kind of madness came from the depths of their bloodline, and there was no way to stop it. The number of berserker marks would continue to increase as the number of people killed increased. If a berserker could survive the berserker beast's pursuit and increase the number of berserker marks he had to over 300 berserker marks, then he would have the right to refine the berserker mark into his body. Not only would his level of cultivation increase, he would also have a 10% chance of forming the berserker ancestor's blood within him and becoming a young minister of berserkers. Casting a high-level barbarian summoning art required the barbarian ancestor to personally cast it. It required a huge price. However, as the 5th ancestor was on the verge of death, he no longer cared about his own life. Naturally, he was not afraid of paying the price and forcefully planted this technique on Ning Fan. If Ning Fan dies under the relentless pursuit of the savage beasts, the 5th ancestor would naturally die without any regrets. However, the 5th ancestor also understood that they might not be able to take Ning Fan's life just by relying on the savage beasts. Fortunately, once this barbarian summoning technique is planted, it would attract the pursuit of the other barbarian ancestors. If that's the case, Ning Fan would really be in danger. I didn't expect that the 5th ancestor would plant a barbarian summoning technique on me before he died. Ning Fan's expression was uncertain. Although he was not a barbarian, he was a tribulation spirit of Taicang. The barbarians were the slaves of the tribulation spirits, and the barbarian's bloodline was created by imitating the tribulation spirit's bloodline. An ordinary cultivator would not be able to benefit from the barbarian's summoning art, but Ning Fan's could do it. However, before he could reap the benefits, he had to first solve the troubles caused by the barbarian's summoning art. Due to the existence of the blood restriction, the 200,000 savage beasts on the broken continent were originally under Ning Fan's control. However, now that the beasts had already gone mad, the blood restriction could no longer suppress their killing intent. 200,000 wild beasts soared into the sky recklessly and charged at Ning Fan. They simply did not have the slightest bit of rationality left. Countless barbarians and cultivators panicked. They couldn't understand why these beasts would suddenly go berserk. Only a few people who had heard of the barbarian summoning art guessed the reason, and Venerable Wise Words was one of them. Not good, fellow Taoist Zhao has been hit by a high-level barbarian summoning art. Venerated Miao Yen was inwardly shocked. He immediately sent a telepathic message to Ning Fan to remind him. Fellow Taoist Zhao, be careful. Once you're under the effect of a high-grade barbarian summoning technique, all the wild beasts in the desolate land will become your greatest enemy. She had the intention to help Ning Fan deal with the beasts, but the bewitching art in her body had just been undone, so she couldn't use her magical power yet. The only thing she could do was to warn him. Immortal Loli also couldn't use her lightning power, otherwise, she would have already rushed out to help Ning Fan. In fact, there was no need for venerable wise words to warn him. Ning Fan had lived in the desolate land for many years, so he had already seen the barbarian summoning art in the ancient books. Otherwise, he wouldn't have recognized it at first glance. The 200,000 wild beasts had already been bewitched by the barbarian summoning art. They were determined to kill Ning Fan and had lost all rationality. The beasts that were as large as small mountains soared into the sky and rammed towards Ning Fan. There were also hundreds of beasts at the Duzhen and Shikong realms that spurted out black and red barbaric flashes, intending to kill Ning Fan on the spot. Humph! Just a bunch of evil beasts, how dare you attack my master? Master, quickly let me shoot them down. Master's enemy is my enemy. Master's glory is my glory. The dragon horn Bao's voice was filled with righteous indignation. The Bao spirit had already received Ning Fan's promise. In order to obtain the reward from the purple gourd, it naturally wouldn't let go of any opportunity to show off. These wild beasts were once controlled by the demon race's forbidden blood. They had slaughtered barbarians and were also the initiators of the collapse of the desolate land. They were also standing on the opposite side of the barbarians. Therefore, the incense fire condensed from the burning joss flames of the barbarians was enough to hurt these wild beasts. Ning Fan didn't pay attention to the candle Bao's words. He stepped on the golden rainbow and dodged the barbarian flashes that pierced through the sky. The black and red barbarian mark on the left side of his face constantly emitted a burning sensation, reminding Ning Fan that the 200,000 wild beasts in front of him were bewitched by the barbarian summoning art. They were already enemies and no longer his subordinates. He tried to break the barbarian summoning art in his body, but unfortunately, this art was extremely strange. Once he was hit, he couldn't break it at all. All of you, back off. Ning Fan used the power of the tribulation blood in this sentence. His words naturally carried the might of the tribulation intent. When his voice that carried the might of the tribulation intent entered the ears of the wild beasts, it immediately caused them to tremble violently. It was as if they were enlightened, causing them to be stunned on the spot. The voice that carried the might of the tribulation intent slightly dispersed the madness in the bloodline of the wild beasts. However, just a moment later, the wild beasts fell into madness again and surrounded Ning Fan to kill him. The bewitching power of the barbarian summoning art was too strong. The wild beasts were originally afraid of the might of the tribulation intent, but now, they were no longer afraid. Some of the wild beasts did not hesitate to ignite the beast blood in their bodies and self-destruct just to kill Ning Fan. Madness. All the wild beasts had gone mad. The first to bear the brunt of it was the self-destruction of hundreds of life immortal realm wild beasts. The chi wave that was produced directly pushed Ning Fan back 1,000 zhang. Even though he was not injured, it was not easy to deal with it. Then, another 10 duzhen savage beasts rushed towards him and self-destructed. The might of the self-destruction of 10 duzhen savage beasts was extremely terrifying. After all, Ning Fan's true cultivation base was only at the mid-duzhen realm. No matter how strong he was, he would not dare to face the self-destruction of 10 duzhen savage beasts head-on. Just as he was about to retreat, several shedding void savage beasts rushed towards him from behind. Without saying anything, they directly self-destructed. Moreover, there were more than one shedding void savage beasts. Thus, Ning Fan did not dare to face them head-on. The self-destruction of those shedding void savage beasts was like a secret signal. As soon as they self-destructed, the rest of the wild beasts actually ignited their bloodlines and self-destructed. 200,000 wild beasts went crazy and self-destructed at the same time. Perhaps even the immortal venerables of the ancient times would have to retreat slightly if they were to encounter such a terrifying force. Self-destruction, huh? Ning Fan closed his eyes and sighed inwardly. These 200,000 wild beasts used to be his beast army after all. Now, they had all self-destructed and died because of the barbarian summoning art. It was really a pity. If the wild beasts use other methods to deal with Ning Fan, he would probably be exhausted. However, if they self-destructed, in the void, Ning Fan was clearly at the center of the self-destruction storm. However, he did not try to avoid it. Instead, he directly entered the profound Yin world. Even though the self-destruction in the outside world was powerful, it could not hurt Ning Fan who was inside the profound Yin world. The cultivators on the broken continent could not see Ning Fan's movement of entering the profound Yin world. After all, Ning Fan was at the center of the self-destruction. Countless folds were formed in the hollow space due to the explosion. Their spirit sense could not penetrate into the void. When the aftermath of the self-destruction dissipated, the crowd of cultivators was shocked to find that Ning Fan appeared in front of them unscathed. Senior Zhao is really powerful. Even the self-destruction of 200,000 wild beasts could not hurt him. What exactly is his cultivation base? I initially thought that Senior Zhao was at the mid-shedding void savage realm when he was at his peak. However, it seems like I have greatly underestimated him. What mid-shedding void savage realm? I have served on Senior Mo Yuanzi's spirit boat before. I heard from him that Senior Zhao's cultivation base is unfathomable. Perhaps he has already broken through the perception-breaking realm and stepped into the eternal era. Ning Fan naturally did not care about the discussions of the crowd of cultivators. The self-destruction of 200,000 wild beasts filled the void space with blood mist. The blood mist surrounded him and immediately flowed into his body due to the existence of the barbarian summoning art. There was originally only one barbarian mark on the left side of Ning Fan's face. However, after absorbing the blood qi of 200,000 wild beasts, new barbarian marks kept appearing. The second one, the third one, the fourth one. The blood qi of 200,000 wild beasts was enormous, but it only increased the number of barbarian marks on the left side of Ning Fan's face by 8. Including the first barbarian mark, Ning Fan had a total of 9 barbarian marks. The 9 barbarian marks formed the pattern of a leaf. The color of the leaf was black and red, making it look rather strange. If the number of barbarian marks reached 300, Ning Fan would have successfully awakened the young priest barbarian mark. Unfortunately, he only gained 8 barbarian marks after killing 200,000 wild beasts. If he wants to increase the number of barbarian marks through killing, he had no idea how many wild beasts he would have to kill to get to 300. Venerated Immortal, do you have any way to contact Venerated 6 Unity Immortal Venerated? Or perhaps, Venerable Miao Yen, do you know where Venerable 6 Unity is now? Ning Fan landed on the broken continent and asked Venerable Miao Yen who had also landed. Venerable Miao Yen originally had a lot of questions to ask Ning Fan, but it was not convenient for him to ask them now. He just nodded and answered. I can't contact fellow Daoist 6 Unity, but I have a way to sense his location. However, my magic power has not fully recovered yet. I still need to adjust my breathing for a while before I can sense his location. If that's the case, Venerable Miao Yen, please take a rest. I won't disturb you any longer. After exchanging a few words with Venerable Miao Yen, Ning Fan sat cross-legged on the city wall. He closed his eyes and began to sense his surroundings, activating the reverse spirit technique. The reverse spirit technique was a type of sensing ability. It also had the ability to track one's senses in reverse. Ning Fan could feel that from the moment he was struck by the barbarian summoning art, he had been locked onto by countless qi. There were more than 10 million qi that had locked onto him. Basically, all of them were wild beasts. Those qi came from all directions. At this moment, he was afraid that all the wild beasts in the wild desolate had the intention to kill him. After all, the barbarian summoning art had the ability to summon all the wild beasts in the wild desolate to besiege him. It was not hard to imagine how terrifying a force it would be to summon tens of millions of wild beasts. However, what caught Ning Fan's attention the most was that among these qi, there were actually 4 qi that were completely different from the wild beasts. These 4 chi did not conceal the aura of the barbarian ancestors at all. Thus, Ning Fan was certain that these 4 people were the other 4 barbarian ancestors besides the 3rd ancestor, the 5th ancestor and the 6th ancestor. These 4 barbarian ancestors had also locked onto him with the power of the barbarian summoning art. Perhaps, they were heading towards this place to kill him, for barbarian ancestors and tens of millions of wild beasts. The barbarian summoning art of the 5 ancestors was really impressive. In just a short while, it had attracted countless strong enemies for Ning Fan. Ning Fan still had 26 colored arrows and 1 7-colored arrow in his hands. The only ones who had combat power that could fight against venerated immortal beings were Immortal Loli and Venerable Miao Yen. No matter how he calculated, it would be a disaster to face tens of millions of wild beasts and 4 barbarian ancestors. The only thing Ning Fan could do now was to meet up with the 6 Unity Immortal Venerates and the others as soon as possible. Then, he could further increase his ability to protect himself. Not long after that, Venerable Miao Yen recovered some of her magic power and sensed the location of the 6 Unity Immortal Venerates. Under Ning Fan's control, the broken continent sped all the way to meet up with the army of the human race. At the same time, Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon and Venerable Ao Xian's faces were filled with rage. 2 more rubies on the compass were broken. The ancient statues of the 3rd ancestor and the 5th ancestor were also destroyed. The ancient statues of the other 4 ancestors could not be found nor could they get in touch with them. However, what enraged them the most was the battle reports that kept coming back to them. There were reports from various demon clans claiming that the wild beasts under their command had gone out of control. All the wild beasts in the desolate land had gone out of control and the reason was unknown. Somewhere in the Gate of Life, which was filled with cold chi, a true crossing realm dragon demon was leading thousands of wild beasts to hunt down a group of human cultivators. Of course, the strength of this dragon demon was far inferior to that group of human cultivators. However, the wild beasts under his command possessed terrifying combat strength and a large number of them. Therefore, it was a piece of cake for him to hunt down the human cultivators. Hee hee. How can you human ants escape from my palm? Hiss. What's going on? That demon cultivator Du Zhen was wearing a cruel and complacent expression. However, all of a sudden, he could no longer smile. For some reason, the thousands of savage beasts under Zhang Xian's command suddenly broke free of the Blood Seal's control and abandoned him. After that, the eyes of the thousands of wild beasts were filled with killing intent as they flew towards a certain direction. All the wild beasts had left the battlefield. Only true Dragon Demon Du was left to face a large group of human cultivators. What was a reversal of the situation? This was a reversal of the situation, hiss. How could this happen? Why did the Blood Seal go out of control? Where are these wild beasts going? Why aren't they listening to my orders? True Dragon Demon Du was shocked while the human cultivators who were running for their lives were overjoyed. Quick! This old demon is alone. All the wild beasts have left him. Kill him. Although I don't understand what happened, it's definitely a good thing for us that the wild beasts have left. Kill! 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 The human cultivators swarmed forward and immediately turned this true dragon demon into minced meat. The same scene did not only happen here but also in countless other broken worlds. In a world with a whistling chilly wind, a thought-fragmenting demon cultivator was leading 300,000 wild beasts to chase after a human army. All of a sudden, all 300,000 wild beasts went out of control and left the battlefield. As for that thought-fragmenting demon cultivator, he was immediately besieged by the human cultivators. In a certain broken world, a group of human cultivators was flying cautiously. When they saw a large group of wild beasts flying past them, all of their faces turned pale with fright. Normally, when wild beasts encounter cultivators, they would definitely chase after them endlessly. However, the strange thing was that the wild beasts that passed by this place did not seem to notice the change in the group of human cultivators. They just passed by without killing any of them. The wild beasts that obeyed the orders of the demon race were gone. The ferocious wild beasts that would kill anyone they see were also gone. At this moment, all the wild beasts only wanted to do one thing, to chase after Ning Fan with all their might and kill him. The barbarian summoning art was a kind of temptation that came from the bloodline. It could make all the wild beasts in the desolate world put down everything and kill Ning Fan alone. As a result, all the demon cultivators were tricked. Countless demon cultivators were ruthlessly killed by the human race because the wild beasts suddenly left the battlefield. Unfavorable battle reports were sent back to the demon race, which made Ao Xian, an old ancestor poisonous dragon, even more shocked and furious. However, they did not understand what had happened. In the plan of blood sacrifice in the desolate world, the wild beasts were the main support of the demon race. Without the help of the wild beasts, the demon race would no longer have the advantage against the human race. Damn it. What exactly is happening in the desolate world now? Why would the wild beasts go crazy if nothing unexpected happened? We can't find the stone statue of the barbaric ancestor, and the wild beasts have also gone out of control. Is the plan of blood sacrifice really going to fail? Somewhere in the void, a two-headed old man was flying on a flying sword. His eyes were dark like the netherworld and had the ability to absorb people's souls. The flying sword under his feet was a blood-red bone sword. He was the first barbaric ancestor, Fan Tsanggu. The chi of a high-grade barbarian summoning technique. Judging from this chi, it should be planted by the fifth ancestor and not the second ancestor. The death chi in this barbarian summoning technique is very strong. It should be planted by the fifth ancestor after risking his life. Is the fifth ancestor dead? Humph. Who dares to kill the barbaric ancestor? Courting death. The eyes of the first barbaric ancestor immediately burst out with sky-piercing killing intent. He suddenly changed the direction of the bone sword and dashed towards Ning Fan's direction. On a certain broken continent, there was a gigantic tomb made of bluestone. The death chi around the tomb was extremely dense. There was a skeleton soldier patrolling every 100 steps. This gigantic tomb had already appeared on this continent a few days ago. The moment the tomb appeared, countless barbarians lost their flesh and blood and turned into skeleton soldiers. There was no chi coming from the tomb at first. However, the moment Ning Fan was affected by the barbarian summoning technique, the tomb exploded from the center. A stone giant with two heads sat up from the tomb and slowly turned into a two-headed old man. Half of the two-headed old man's body was made of flesh and blood while the other half was just a skeleton. His appearance was extremely strange. This person was the second ancestor, Fan Zong. Is the fifth ancestor dead? This hand-summoning barbarian art of his might become my nourishment. 9 barbarian marks. Not bad. It can be considered a small nourishment. It's a pity. I should wait a little longer. I need to be patient. The second ancestor's body swayed and disappeared from the place. At the same time, all the skeleton soldiers on the continent let out a miserable cry and turned into ashes. Somewhere in the Gate of Death, a plump two-headed old man was sitting cross-legged on a gigantic blood shadow beast while cultivating. He was the fourth ancestor, Fan Shoufei. After sensing the chi of the barbarian summoning technique, the fourth ancestor slowly opened his eyes and revealed an extremely strange smile. 9 barbarian marks. Not enough. It's still not enough. Only when you have more than 100 barbarian marks will it be considered a great nourishment. The fifth ancestor is dead, but he has left us a great gift. The fourth ancestor licked his lips and flew out of the Gate of Death while riding the gigantic blood shadow beast. Among the 4 remaining barbarian ancestors, 3 of them secretly chased after Ning Fan. Only the 7th ancestor, Fan Ma Kong, was sitting in the void somewhere. His hands were still forming hand seals and he did not care about the barbarian summoning technique. His eyes were empty and his expression was numb. He did not have spiritual intelligence like the other barbarian ancestors. He was like a machine or a puppet. He only knew how to form hand seals over and over again. He did not seem to care about anything else. His mouth was chanting intermittent incantations from time to time. Every time he chanted the incantation, a gigantic shadow of a chessboard would appear beneath him and disappear in a flash. If the experienced Four Heavens Old monsters were here, they would certainly recognize that the shadow of the chessboard was somewhat similar to the supreme treasure of the immortal Emperor Fate Master, the Karma chessboard. If Ning Fan was here, he would certainly notice that there was a faint connection between the seventh ancestor and the immortal Emperor Fate Master. Unfortunately, Ning Fan was not here and he did not see the shadow of the chessboard. Along the way, Ning Fan constantly encountered groups of barbarian beasts. As soon as they saw Ning Fan, they immediately rushed towards him. They subconsciously chose to self-detonate, wanting to kill Ning Fan. If it were those cultivators who did not have mid-kiliacosm treasures, most of them would have been blown to smithereens by the self-detonation of the barbarian beasts. Unfortunately, Ning Fan was the master of the profound Yin world. Every time he was attacked by the barbarian beasts, he would directly fly away from the broken continent and lure them to self-detonate at a distance. As long as he could escape into the profound Yin world in time, none of the self-detonation of the barbarian beasts could hurt him. Along the way, Ning Fan encountered two thought fragmentation realm barbarian beasts. The self-detonation of these two barbarian beasts caused the profound Yin world to tremble slightly. However, that was all. The damage caused by the self-detonation could not reach the profound Yin world at all. Since the self-detonation of these barbarian beasts could not kill Ning Fan, it was as if they were constantly sending him benefits. Ning Fan continued to absorb the blood qi produced by the dead barbarian beasts. The number of barbarian marks on his left side kept increasing. In the beginning, there were 9 marks, but now, there were 45 marks. The pattern on the left had also changed from 1 leaf to 4. Along the way, there were already nearly 2 million wild beasts who came to him to self-detonate. With countless precedents, Ning Fan was no longer worried about the remaining wild beasts attacking him. He was not afraid of self-destruction. The only thing he cared about was the 4 barbaric ancestors who had locked onto him. What made Ning Fan rejoice was that for some unknown reason, only 3 of the 4 barbaric ancestors were chasing after him. The remaining barbaric ancestor was different from the other barbaric ancestors. Even though he had locked onto Ning Fan with his qi, he did not bother to chase after him. If there are only 3 barbaric ancestors who come to attack us, once they meet up with 6 Unity Immortal Venerate, there's nothing to be afraid of. With 6 Unity, Miao Yen, Immortal Loli and Ning Fan's 7-colored arrow, the 3 barbaric ancestors would certainly not have a good ending if they come knocking on their door. I just didn't expect that the higher the level of the Berserker mark, the harder it is to increase the number of Berserker marks. In the beginning, I could gain 8 Berserker marks by killing 200,000 monsters. However, after 10 Berserker marks, I could only gain 4 to 5 Berserker marks after killing 2 to 300,000 monsters. Only those who have 300 Berserker marks can become the young priest of the barbarian race. In that case, it would be difficult for me to gather 300 Berserker marks even if I kill all the wild beasts in the desolate wasteland. Ning Fan shook his head slightly. Even though the number of Berserker marks was constantly increasing, he did not sense any substantial benefits. He was getting closer and closer to the location that Venerate Miao Yen had pointed out. According to Ning Fan's estimation, he would be able to meet up with the army of 6 Unity Immortal Venerates in a short while. After encountering another batch of wild beasts who self-detonated, Ning Fan absorbed the blood qi left behind by all of them. The number of Berserker marks increased to 46. The moment the number of Berserker marks reached 46, the pattern on the left side of Ning Fan's face suddenly changed. It was originally a pattern with 4 leaves. However, when the 46th Berserker mark appeared, a pattern of a 6-edged snowflake appeared between the 4 leaves. At the moment when the snowflake appeared, traces of barbaric blood were directly produced in Ning Fan's body. Barbaric blood was a type of bloodline that imitated the calamity blood. Once it appeared in Ning Fan's body, it was immediately devoured by the tyrannical calamity blood. After devouring the barbaric blood, the grade of Ning Fan's calamity blood increased bit by bit. In just an hour, his calamity blood had risen from 6 stars remnant blood to 7 stars remnant blood. 46, for leaves, 6-edged snowflake, the grade of the calamity blood has actually increased. Ning Fan's eyes flashed. He suddenly felt a little expectant about the increase of the berserker mark on the left side of his face. 45 berserker marks did not have any effect. However, when the 46th berserker mark appeared, he would be able to cultivate barbaric blood which could be used to increase the grade of his calamity blood. 46 berserker marks, Even though it hasn't reached 100, it should be quite useful. Hee. It seems like I'm the first one to catch up to this young man. It seems a little troublesome. Should I attack this young man? There's actually a female venerate of the human race on this broken continent. Could it be that the 5th ancestor died in the hands of this female venerate? It doesn't seem appropriate for me to act rashly. Should I wait for the others? Far away from them, the 4th ancestor was sitting on the blood shadow gigantic beast. He was chasing after the broken continent with all his might. Suddenly, his expression turned extremely ugly. He had only taken a quick glance at them and he did not see through Ning Fan immortal lowly strength. He only knew that there was an immortal venerate named Venerate Wise Words on this continent. Today, however, the chi of a second immortal venerate expert had appeared. Fellow Taoist Wise Words, I'm very happy that you can return safely. Not far away from the broken continent, the voice of a 6-unity immortal venerate suddenly resounded. This place was already not far away from where the human army was. Just as the voice faded away, an army of the human army approached from afar to welcome the return of Venerate Wise Words. It's the voice of a 6-unity immortal venerate. It's the Een Hai army. One of the 6-unity army. We've finally met up with the main army. Immediately, the cheers of countless cultivators could be heard from the broken continent. Soon, they would reach the encampment of the human race. The 4th ancestor's expression was extremely unpleasant. If there was only one immortal venerate here, he would still dare to attack Ning Fan. However, if there was another immortal venerate, he would have to plan carefully. Let's wait a little longer. We'll make a decision after the other barbarian ancestors arrive. The 4th ancestor made his decision cautiously. I basically spent the new year lying down. Recently, my body has been very weak and I haven't updated a lot. I'm sorry. I hope that I can update steadily in the 3rd month of March and get a perfect attendance award. Ink was also feeling very pained during the days when there were no updates. He did not like his current appearance. Chapter 908. Due to the 4th ancestor's cautiousness, he did not dare to stay in this place for too long. He was afraid that the 2 immortal venerables of the human race would discover him and alert them. He concealed his chi and decided to leave this place temporarily. However, his chi was still locked on Ning Fan, waiting for the arrival of the other barbarian ancestors. The 4th ancestor's concealment technique was extremely profound. No one on the entire broken continent could sense his arrival and departure except for Ning Fan. Noticing that the 4th ancestor had left, Ning Fan frowned slightly but did not say anything. He shifted his gaze to the front and saw 16 spirit boats enshrouded in immortal chi sailing towards him from afar. On each of the spirit boats, there were many spirit flags with the words Een and Hai written on them. Ning Fan had heard about the 6 combat divisions under the command of 6 unity immortal venerables. He had even saved one of the combat divisions, Zi Cho. Thus, he naturally knew that it was the Een Hai combat division that came to welcome venerables Miao Yen. The commander of the Een Hai combat division was an early thought fragmentation realm old monster of the human race. His name was Sang Chong. As the 16 spirit boats approached him, Sang Chong immediately flew down from the spirit boats and landed on the broken continent. Then, he bowed respectfully to Venerables Miao Yen. Sang Chong naturally did not dare to show any neglect in front of a dignified immortal Venerables. Subordinate Sang Chong welcomes the return of Venerables. 6 Unity Immortal Venerables has issued an order to invite Venerables to the South Leaf Fire Formation in advance. As for the people here, I'll lead them into the fire formation. Fellow Daoist 6 Unity has actually activated the South Leaf Fire diagram and set up the South Leaf Fire Formation here. Venerables Miao Yen was slightly surprised. The South Leaf Fire diagram was a 12 Nirvana post-celestial Nirvana magic treasure that 6 Unity Immortal Venerables had spent millions of years to refine. As far as she knew, the South Leaf Fire diagram of 6 Unity Immortal Venerables had yet to be completely refined. How could he already use this treasure to set up a fire formation? She spread her spirit sense to the void in front of her. At the end of the void, she saw a large sea of fire grand formation that suddenly appeared in the void. The sea of fire connected with the general momentum and formed a killing formation diagram. Within the formation diagram, there were tens of broken continents that were connected to each other, forming a gigantic continent. Nearly 1 million human cultivators were stationed on the continent. In the 3 directions of the continent, there were 3 towering peaks, arranged in a triangular formation. The first peak was 9,000 feet tall, the second was 6,000 feet tall, and the third was less than 1,000 feet tall. So this treasure has yet to be completely refined. It's still a half-finished product, huh? Venerated Miao Yen muttered to himself. He glanced at Ning Fan and pondered for a moment before speaking to Sang Chong. Since the 6 Direction Celestial Sovereign has invited me to meet him, I will make a move first. I will have to trouble Commander Sang to lead the others into the fire formation. As soon as he finished speaking, Venerated Miao Yen transmitted his voice to Ning Fan. Fellow Daoist Zhao, I owe you a debt of gratitude for saving my life. However, I have been unconscious ever since the day I was saved. Thus, I haven't had the time to repay you. At this moment, I'm anxious to meet fellow Daoist Lu He to discuss the important matters of the wildlands. Later, I'll come to find fellow Daoist and give you a precious treasure that I've kept for many years to repay fellow Daoist for saving my life. After making the solemn promise, Venerated Miao Yen tapped the ground with the tip of his feet and flew away from the broken continent. In just a flash, he had already crossed countless voids and flew forward. Ning Fan looked at Venerated Miao Yan's departing figure with a calm expression. The reason why he saved Venerated Miao Yen was to repay him for saving his life that day. He did not really care about the precious treasure that Venerated Miao Yen mentioned. Hee. I'm Sang Chong from the Yin Si War Division. Greetings, fellow Taoists. After Venerated Miao Yen left, Sang Chong greeted Mounz, Old Ancestor Jin Hua, Teng Nan, Teng Bei and the other human Broken Thought Realm cultivators who were controlling the Broken Continent. From Sang Chong's point of view, it was not surprising that the 4 human Broken Thought Realm cultivators were able to make the Broken Continent fly like a postnatal magic treasure. What made him slightly surprised was that there were actually Berserker tribe mortals on this Broken Continent. In his opinion, this Broken Continent should be the temporary resting place of Venerated Miao Yen. The human cultivators on this continent were probably the people that Venerated Miao Yen had saved along the way. It was reasonable for Venerated Miao Yen to save the human cultivators during the great calamity of the desolate world. But why did he save some barbarian mortals? Sang Chong could not figure it out. However, as far as he knew, the 6 combinations immortal Venerated Miao Yen happened to need some mortals as sacrificial offerings. When the time comes, I can choose some of these barbarians as sacrificial offerings to the 6 combinations immortal Venerated Miao Yen. The life and death of these barbarians is just a small matter. However, it concerns the safety of the human cultivators. I think Venerated Miao Yen won't care about the lives of these barbarians. Sang Chong thought to himself. The 16 spirit boats led the broken continent forward at full speed. The journey was not far. Therefore, Sang Chong did not talk much with the few broken thought realm cultivators along the way. He knew nothing about what they had encountered along the way. Naturally, he did not know about Ning Fan's impressive achievements along the way. Therefore, Sang Chong had yet to see how extraordinary Ning Fan was. He also did not pay any attention to him. Even if he spoke occasionally, he would only talk to Ting Nan and Ting Bei. He did not talk much with Mounz and old ancestor Jin Hua, the two old monsters of the Devil Dao. This was the problem with Sang Chong's personality. He was an orthodox profound cultivator. That was why he hated devil cultivators. That was the reason why he was too lazy to pay attention to Mounz and old ancestor Jin Hua. Of course, the reason why he dared to slight Mounz and the others was because his cultivation base was at the early thought realm like Mounz. If Mounz was a mid-thought realm devil cultivator, he would not dare to slight them. He still knew how to be flexible. Mounz and old ancestor Jin Hua were naturally displeased by Sang Chong's cold attitude. However, they did not say anything. Soon, an endless sea of fire appeared in front of them. They were connected to each other and formed a formation diagram. This formation was called the South Leaf Fire Formation. It was created by the 6 combinations immortal venerated Jin Hua's semi-finished magic treasure, the South Leaf Fire Diagram. It was used to protect the human cultivators in this place. Even with his eyesight at the second level of the heaven realm, he actually could not see through the mysteries of this formation at first glance. After activating the secret word force, he finally saw through all the veins of this formation. Inwardly, he was surprised by how extraordinary this formation was. This formation is extraordinary. It is transformed from a magic treasure, the fire diagram. However, that fire diagram seems to be incomplete. It is just a semi-finished product. The 3 fire mountains in the middle of the grand formation are the source of the power of this formation. The first mountain is 9,000 zhang tall. The second mountain is only 6,000 zhang tall and the third mountain is only 3,000 zhang tall. If this fire diagram is successfully refined, the last 2 fire mountains will also be 9,000 zhang tall. When the time comes, the 3 mountains will merge and the power of the fire will be stacked. The power of this formation is enough to threaten the life of an ordinary immortal venerated. As Sang Chong took out a fiery red token, a passage of fire immediately appeared above the Sea of Fire Grand Formation. Sang Chong suddenly activated his divine ability and transmitted his voice to the entire heavenly barbarian city. We are about to enter the central area of the South Leaf Fire Formation. This formation was created by a 6 combinations immortal venerated. The continents in the formation are arranged according to the fire mountains. Before entering the South Leaf Fire Formation, I want to inform everyone of the rules set by the 6 combinations immortal venerated. The first mountain is 9,000 zhang tall and is located in the north of the continent. That is the place where the 6 combinations immortal venerated goes into seclusion. Those who do not have a cultivation base at the second step are not allowed to step into the area of the first mountain. Those who are cultivators of the Gong sect are not subject to this rule. The second mountain is 6,000 zhang tall and is located in the southwest of the continent. Those who do not have a cultivation base at the void fragmentation realm or above are not allowed to step into the area of the second mountain. Those who are cultivators of the Gong sect are not subject to this rule. The third mountain is 3,000 zhang tall and is located in the southeast of the continent. Those who do not have a high cultivation base and are not cultivators of the Gong sect can only stay in the area of the third mountain and wait for orders. No mistakes are allowed. Apart from that, cultivators who are not cultivators of the Gong sect must also abide by the 9 orders and 16 prohibitions. Some cultivators of the Devil Dao must strictly abide by this order and are not allowed to disobey it. Sang Chong's cold eyes swept across Mounz and the others, secretly warning them. Then, He took out an imperial edict made of yellow silk and began to issue the various decrees of the 6 combinations immortal venerated. The cultivators in the heavenly barbarian city became spirited after hearing what he said. They engraved these decrees in their hearts and did not dare to disobey them. Some cultivators of the devil Tao, in particular, were even more cautious in their words and actions after hearing these rules. They were afraid of doing something wrong and getting themselves in trouble. Everyone knew that the 6 combinations immortal venerated was an extremely old-fashioned cultivator who valued rules the most. Everyone naturally had to obey the rules set by the 6 combinations immortal venerated. Otherwise, they would be going against the 6 combinations immortal venerated. Rules. 9 orders and 16 prohibitions. He could naturally tell that all the rules set by the 6 combinations immortal venerated were targeted at cultivators who were not cultivators of the Gong sect. If one joins the 4 Puppets sect, he would not be restricted by any rules when he walks in this place. On the contrary, if one is not a cultivator of the Gong sect, he or she would be restricted by many rules. Ning Fan did not raise any objection to all of this. Now that he was under the protection of a 6 combinations immortal venerated, he naturally would not deliberately break the rules and challenge the dignity of a 6 combinations immortal venerated. The 16 spirit boats led the broken continent towards the territory of the 3rd peak. After all, there were too many low-grade cultivators in the Heaven Man city and millions of mortals. According to the rules set by the 6 combinations immortal venerated, they were not allowed to enter the territory of the 1st and 2nd peaks without permission. They could only come to the 3rd peak. Under the power of Mounz and the other 3 thought-breaking realm experts, the broken continent near the Heaven Man city was located directly merged with the continent of the 3rd peak and became one. Countless cultivators were already waiting at the foot of the 3rd peak. Chenzong was an elder of the vast cold sect in the northern heaven. However, judging from his appearance, he looked like a 70 or 80 years old mortal old man. In reality, he was a late shedding void realm expert. He led a small group of second-step cultivators of the vast cold sect and waited here because he sensed a trace of the chi of the vast cold sect's cultivators in the broken continent. Oh! Isn't this Elder Han Wu? Chenzong stroked his long beard gently and smiled warmly. Then, he led a group of vast cold sect's cultivators towards them. Master Chen. You're here too. How would Fairy Han Wu dare to be negligent? Even though she and Chenzong were both shedding void realm experts, Chenzong was half a master to her. If it wasn't for Chenzong's guidance in the past, she would never have the chance to step into the shedding void realm. Therefore, when Chenzong arrived, she immediately went forward to greet him. After chatting for a while, Chenzong suggested that Han Wu should go with the cultivators of the vast cold palace to the area of the 1st peak. Chenzong was half a master to Fairy Han Wu. Of course, Han Wu would not dare to reject his suggestion. However, she did not want to leave his side either. Ning. Fellow Taoist Zhao, are you willing to go with me to the area of the 1st peak? With your cultivation base, even if you're not a cultivator of the puppet sect, you can still enter the 1st peak. Fairy Han Wu asked with a hint of hope. No, I think it's better for me to stay on the 3rd peak. After all, there are a large number of barbarians who will be accompanying us this time. They can only stay on the 3rd peak. I don't want to leave them behind. Ning Fan said helplessly. Then I won't go to the 1st peak as well. Just as Han Wu opened her mouth, she was interrupted by Ning Fan with a smile. Now that you've come to this place, you're already considered to be out of danger. You can follow the cultivators of your sect to the 1st peak. If you need anything, you can just come to the 3rd peak to look for me. Han Wu pondered for a while and felt that Ning Fan's words made sense. If she wants to see Ning Fan again, she can just come to the 3rd peak. She solemnly bowed to Ning Fan and thanked him for saving her life. Then, she followed the cultivators of the vast cold palace and flew towards the direction of the 1st peak. Her bow had shocked all the cultivators of the vast cold palace including Chenzong. In their impression, Fairy Han Wu's temperament was cold and indifferent. She had never been kind to any man. Today, however, she was looking at Ning Fan with affection. Moreover, she even said that Ning Fan had saved her life. Ugh! Who is this ghost-faced cultivator? How could he make Elder Han Wu who has a cold temperament show such an expression? Each of the cultivators of the vast cold palace felt that it was inconceivable. On the other side, the four-eyed devil monarch had also found a few of his best friends. His friends were also from the northern Heaven Corp's Devil Ancient region. They were a few late True Crossing Realm and Peak True Crossing Realm rogue cultivators. They were also resting at the first peak and invited the four-eyed devil monarch to go with them. The four-eyed devil monarch didn't hesitate. After repeatedly thanking Ning Fan for saving her life, he went to the first peak with his friends. Along the way, Ning Fan had saved many cultivators. When these cultivators returned to the encampment of the human race, they would naturally leave Ning Fan's side. Ning Fan didn't mind it at all. The cultivators who were saved kept thanking Ning Fan for saving their lives and left the third peak. In the end, even the cultivators of the Zichou Combat Division expressed their gratitude to Ning Fan. Sang Chong's expression finally changed. He began to pay attention to Ning Fan. He saw that among those cultivators who thanked Ning Fan, there were first-step cultivators, human profound and ghost profound life immortals, Du Zhen and Shikong true immortals. What surprised him the most was that even Ting Nan and Teng Bei who were early thought-shattering true immortals also expressed their gratitude to Ning Fan. They also thanked Ning Fan for saving their lives. Sang Chong was shocked. He initially thought that Ning Fan was at the mid-shedding void realm before being suppressed by the forbidden immortal force. But if Ning Fan only had this cultivation base, how could he have saved Ting Nan and Teng Bei's lives? Sang Chong knew that he had underestimated Ning Fan's true cultivation base. Ning Fan's true cultivation base couldn't possibly be at the mid-shedding void realm. Sang Chong even saw a trace of respect in Ting Nan and Teng Bei's eyes. Could it be that this ghost-faced cultivator is a mid-thought-shattering cultivator? Otherwise, how could he make Ting Nan and Teng Bei show such respect to him? What qualifications does he have to save their lives? Sang Chong thought to himself. If Ning Fan was really a mid-thought-shattering cultivator, it would be worthwhile for him to befriend him. However, Ning Fan's chi was extremely cold. With Sang Chong's experience, he could vaguely guess that Ning Fan was an evil cultivator. Although he hated evil cultivators, if Ning Fan's cultivation base was higher than his, he wouldn't dare to neglect Ning Fan. May I ask Brother Teng, what is the name of this ghost-faced cultivator? What is his background and what is his cultivation base? Why do you owe him a life-saving debt? Sang Chong asked Ting Nan and Teng Bei in a low voice after pondering for a moment. Before Ting Nan and Teng Bei could answer, Mounz sneered and looked at Sang Chong with disdain. You don't know Senior Zhao Jian? Aren't you a little too ill-informed? Sang Chong's heart skipped a beat. Did he hear it wrongly? Mounz addressed Ning Fan as senior. Mounz was a thought-shattering cultivator. Even if he was facing a peak thought-shattering cultivator, he didn't need to address him as senior. What kind of person could make Mounz address him as senior willingly? Could it be that this ghost-faced cultivator is an eternal ancient realm cultivator? Could it be that there is a third immortal venerable in the desolate land other than Miao Yan and Lu He? But how is this possible? There are less than 1,004 heavens immortal venerables outside of the secret races. I have never heard of an immortal venerable called Zhao Jian. Even in the thought-shattering realm, there isn't anyone with this name. Sang Chong's mind was filled with doubts. He secretly spread out his spirit sense and scanned Ning Fan's body. As soon as he did so, he felt a sharp pain in his sea of consciousness. His face turned pale with fright. Before the spirit sense that invaded Ning Fan's body could find anything, all of them strangely disappeared, as if they were forcefully devoured by something. He spread out his spirit sense again and again. However, each time his spirit sense disappeared into Ning Fan's body like a clay ox entering the sea. He couldn't retrieve it even if he wanted to. One should know that Sang Chong's cultivation base was at the early thought-shattering realm. Although his strength wasn't considered strong among those at the early thought-shattering realm, his spirit sense cultivation base was extremely high. His spirit sense cultivation base was not much weaker than some mid-thought-shattering realm old monsters. With his spirit sense cultivation base, even if the other party was a peak thought-shattering realm old monster, he wouldn't be able to intercept his spirit sense. At most, he would be unable to sense his spirit sense. However, Ning Fan was able to do such a thing. What did this mean? It was highly possible that Ning Fan was really an eternal ancient realm old monster. Sang Chong was still in shock. Suddenly, his face turned pale. At this moment, Ning Fan's eyes were as cold as lightning. Sang Chong was shocked. He knew that Ning Fan was angry and dissatisfied with his continuous spying. He immediately begged for mercy. "Senior, please calm down. I didn't mean any harm by spying on you." Sang Chong didn't know that Ning Fan's cold gaze was not directed at him. Ning Fan didn't blame Sang Chong for spying on him. He didn't take the initiative to devour Sang Chong's spirit sense. The thing that devoured Sang Chong's spirit sense was the 46 barbarian marks on Ning Fan's left face. Ning Fan didn't know that even an early thought-shattering realm expert like Sang Chong couldn't probe him after he had these barbarian marks on his body. Once someone tried to probe him, his spirit sense would be forcefully devoured by the barbarian marks. These barbarian marks were very domineering. Moreover, it was fine that these barbarian marks devoured Sang Chong's spirit sense. After that, they seemed to have tasted the sweetness of success and became restless, wanting to devour the spirit sense in Ning Fan's sea of consciousness. What kind of person was Ning Fan? How could he allow the barbarian marks on his body to devour his spirit sense? His eyes were as cold as lightning. His gaze was naturally directed at the disobedient barbarian mark. This bold barbarian mark actually wanted to devour its master. "No matter what, I have to erupt once today. It was cut off yesterday. 3 months, I can't be dispirited." Chapter 909. What kind of person was Ning Fan? How could he allow his barbarian mark to devour its master? His gaze sharpened, and the calamity blood in his body was immediately activated. The Tai Tsung calamity might filled his entire body. At this moment, the devilish nature in his body was so strong that it surpassed any of the other devil cultivators here. The barbarian mark was the divine ability of the barbarian tribe, so it was only natural that it was afraid of the robbery power. Therefore, once Ning Fan activated the power of the calamity blood, the backlash from the barbarian mark was forcefully suppressed in just a split second. Barbarian marks were domineering, but Ning Fan was even more domineering. His gaze was like cold lightning. Although it wasn't directed at Sang Chong, it still scared him. Sang Chong already believed that Ning Fan was an ancient immortal venerable and an old monster of the evil Tao. He could never afford to offend such a person. "Senior. Junior Sang Chong really didn't mean to investigate you. If this junior knew that you were the eternal immortal sovereign, even if you beat this junior to death, this junior wouldn't dare to investigate you. I'm the trusted aide of a 6-combo celestial supremacy after all. If you want to attack me, you have to ask the 6-combo celestial supremacy first, right?" Sang Chong groaned inwardly. Ning Fan, however, retracted the coldness in his eyes and said indifferently, "Just this once." Since the other party had mistaken him for the 10,000 ancient immortal sovereign, he did not mind pretending to be the 10,000 ancient immortal sovereign. Along the way, he had killed 3 barbaric ancestors whose cultivation bases were comparable to immortal venerables in front of everyone. Such an achievement was already shocking and there was no way for him to conceal it. If he said that he wasn't an immortal exalt, there would probably be no one that would believe him. Moreover, it would most likely draw countless troubles to him. So, it would be better to pretend to be an immortal exalt, and it would be much more convenient for him to do things. Seeing that Ning Fan did not blame him, Sang Chong could not help but heave a sigh of relief. Seeing Sang Chong being humiliated, Mounz's old ancestor Jin Hua, who had always been treated coldly by Sang Chong, felt extremely pleased. They continued to tell Sang Chong about his glorious achievements along the way. For example, Ning Fan was not afraid of the dangers of the Gate of Death. He insisted on going through the Gate of Death and saved venerated Miao Yen. For example, Ning Fan had a daughter whose name was Xian Xian. She could summon the Dark Thunder War Chariot, which was close to the 10th grade. Her strength was practically on par with venerated Miao Yen. Another example was that he had consecutively killed 3 barbaric ancestors who were comparable to immortal venerables. His strength had become even more terrifying. The more Sang Chong listened, the more astonished he became. He could not imagine that Ning Fan had a daughter who could fight against immortal venerables, and he himself had even killed 3 immortal venerables in a row. After the initial shock, they were overjoyed. Now that the desolate wilderness was facing a calamity, the safety of everyone would naturally be better protected with the arrival of an expert like Ning Fan. An hour later, Mounz and the others bid farewell to Ning Fan and went to the first peak. As for Ning Fan, he stayed on the 3rd peak. Before Sang Chong left, Ning Fan asked Sang Chong to stay behind. Facing Sang Chong's fearful expression, Ning Fan asked him many questions before letting him go. To Ning Fan's questions, Sang Chong told him everything he knew. He did not dare to conceal anything at all. Most of the things that Ning Fan asked were related to the collapse of the wild world. Not everyone had the right to know such information. However, Sang Chong believed that Ning Fan was qualified to do so. Today was the 5th day of the blood sacrifice in the wild wilderness. Ning Fan had just entered the 3rd peak of the Southly Fire Formation, and his name had already spread across the entire continent. More and more cultivators came to the 3rd peak because of his fame. They wanted to admire Ning Fan's demeanor. However, Ning Fan did not go to meet anyone. The Heaven Barbarian City was not far away from the 3rd peak. Most of the cultivators that he had saved had gone to the 1st and 2nd peaks. Only a few of them stayed on the 3rd peak. Currently, there were only Immortal Lowly, Lu Yan, Zhao Dai, Immortal Concubine Zhongyu, Earth Devil and Daoist Iron Crow by his side. Ning Fan stood alone on the city wall of the Heaven Barbarian City with a solemn expression. Ning Fan had heard many things from Sang Chong. For example, he heard about the incident where Lu Ha and Miao Yen activated the Heaven Sealing Immortal Edict. The Heaven Sealing Immortal Edict could only seal the desolate wilderness for 7 days. On the 8th day, the power of the Heaven Sealing Immortal Edict would surely dissipate. At that time, the ancient passage that was sleeping in the ancient wild region would probably be summoned by the demon race. The demon race has planned so many things for the sake of heading to the ancient passage of the Heaven Barbarian Ancient Realm. The ancient passage and the Heaven Barbarian Ancient Realm. Ning Fan did not know much about the secrets of the Heaven Barbarian Ancient Realm. However, it was not his first time hearing about it. The Heaven Barbarian Ancient Realm was a place that was different from the 4 heavens and 9 worlds, the ancient devil's abyss and the land of demon spirits. In order to enter that place, one could only use the ancient passage. Having the passage alone was not enough. One would also need the key. Ning Fan had once searched through the memories of the Candle Bow. He knew that the previous owner of the bow, the ancestral dragon Zhu Li, had died in battle in the Heaven Barbarian Ancient Realm. Ning Fan had no idea what kind of place the Heaven Barbarian Ancient Realm was. It was the supreme secret of heaven and earth. It was not something that Ning Fan was qualified to know now. Besides, he did not plan to get involved in such a huge matter with his current cultivation base. The barbarian mark on the left side of his face kept giving him a feeling of being locked on. It made Ning Fan put away his thoughts for a while. He activated the reverse spirit technique and carefully sensed the wild beasts that had locked on to him. His brows gradually knitted together. Somehow, the chi of the wild beasts that were charging at him began to gather in a certain direction. In a world that was extremely far away from the Southly Fire Formation, the fourth ancestor was sitting on a blood shadow gigantic beast. They were discussing something with the second ancestor. In front of the two of them, there were countless wild beasts that were charging towards them and gathering at this place. Seeing this scene, the fourth ancestor slightly narrowed his eyes and praised the second ancestor. Second ancestor, you really have a good technique. These wild beasts have already been bewitched by the fifth ancestor. However, they can still listen to your orders. From this, it can be seen that your attainment in the barbarian summoning technique is definitely above the fifth ancestor. He. Barbarian summoning technique is just a small Dao. It's not worth mentioning. Speaking of which, why did the fifth ancestor's barbarian summoning technique only attract the two of us? Why aren't the other barbarian ancestors here yet? The second ancestor's cold eyes seemed to be able to pierce through the void. He looked at the direction of the Southly Fire Formation and licked his lips. He kept telling himself in his heart that he must be patient. He must wait for Ning Fan to have more barbarian marks. Only then would it be more delicious. Moreover, he had already heard from the fourth ancestor that there were two immortal venerables of the human race in front of them. It would not be an easy task to capture Ning Fan in front of the two immortal venerables. He could only wait for the other barbarian ancestors to arrive before making his plan. With the strength of the two of us, we might not be able to defeat the two immortal venerables of the human race even with the help of millions of wild beasts. However, the other barbarian ancestors have yet to arrive. Should we take the initiative to contact the immortal venerables of the demon race and ask for their help? The fourth ancestor suddenly said. No need. Be it the demon race or the human race, they are all just different races. The cooperation between us and the demon race is just to make use of each other. Those who are not of our race will certainly have different intentions. Before our cultivation base recovers, it's better for us to have as little contact with the demon race as possible. As soon as the second ancestor finished speaking, he sneered. Let's wait a little longer. When another barbarian ancestor arrives, we will take action and capture that child who is under the barbarian summoning technique. However, when the time comes, we must fatten him up before we slaughter him. Just 46 barbarian marks are not enough. I must at least help this child to attain 100 barbarian marks. In that case, it will be a great supplement. Ning Fan did not know that the second ancestor was activating his divine ability to gather the wild beasts that had gone mad. Even though he did not know the truth of the matter, he could roughly guess that the sudden gathering of the wild beasts was not a good thing. At first, he was in silence. Then, he suddenly raised his head and looked in the direction of the first peak. Suddenly, he saw a golden-colored messenger flying sword with royal chi coming from the direction of the first peak. It was flying towards him at full speed. The messenger flying sword carried the aura force of an immortal venerables. If Ning Fan was not mistaken, the owner of this aura force was none other than the 6 Unity Immortal Venerables. When the messenger flying sword reached a distance of 3 zhang away from Ning Fan, it immediately trembled and exploded, forming waves of qi. Within the qi waves, a cold and emotionless voice of a middle-aged man could be heard. Cultivator Zhao Jian, quickly come to the first peak to greet me. No mistakes are allowed. The qi waves formed by the explosion of the flying sword were strong enough to reach a cultivator who had ascended to the true origin realm. However, it naturally could not hurt Ning Fan at all. However, the arrogant messenger in the flying sword made Ning Fan's eyes instantly turn cold. After a while, he retracted his cold expression. He could naturally tell that the tone of the 6 Unity Immortal Venerables was extremely unfriendly. It was certainly not a good thing for him to be summoned to the first peak. However, Ning Fan still needed to rely on the protection of the 6 Unity Immortal Venerables to stay in this place. As long as he stays in this place, he must abide by the rules of this place and obey the 9 orders and 16 prohibitions of this place. Among the 9 orders and 16 prohibitions, the first rule was that cultivators who were not from the puppet sect must always listen to the orders of the 6 Unity Immortal Venerables. Those who disobey the rule would be killed without mercy. Now that the 6 Unity Immortal Venerables had sent out a messenger flying sword to summon Ning Fan, he must go to the first peak. Otherwise, he would be regarded as disobeying the rule. You guys stay here and rest for a while. I'm going to the first peak. Ning Fan told Xian Loli and the others. Then, he tapped the ground with the tip of his feet and turned into a ray of golden light, disappearing in a flash. The distance between the third peak and the first peak was extremely far. However, with Ning Fan's speed, he naturally arrived at the foot of the first peak in just a moment. He raised his head and glanced at the first peak. His eyes were slightly solemn. He saw that the entire first peak was surrounded by tens of thousands of flame runes. They surrounded the 9,000 zhang tall mountain and spiraled upwards. On the second peak and the third peak, not a single blade of grass grew. Only the first peak was not only filled with many fiery red trees and flowers but also a majestic palace. That palace was the place where the 6 Unity Immortal Venerables resided. However, it was not an easy task to reach the palace. The flame runes that blotted out the sky and covered the earth were connected to the entire South Leaf Fire Formation. If Ning Fan directly flies to the top of the first peak, he would immediately trigger the runes and suffer the attacks of the entire South Leaf Fire Formation. Even though this formation still had its flaws, its destructive power was definitely enough to make Immortal Venerables stop in their tracks since the intruder was inside the Grand Formation. Only by climbing the stone steps of the mountain to the top of the peak would he not trigger the attacks of the flame runes. Cultivator Zhao Jian, quickly climb to the top of the mountain and come see me. If you can't do this, die. The voice of the 6 Unity Immortal Venerables suddenly drifted down from the top of the first peak and directly entered Ning Fan's ears. Ning Fan's eyes turned slightly cold. What he hated the most in his life was being threatened by others. However, the fact that the 6 Unity Immortal Venerables threatened him with death had already violated his principles. If he were to travel here alone, he would definitely fall out with the 6 Unity Immortal Venerables just because of the threat of the 6 Unity Immortal Venerables. Unfortunately, he was accompanied by the Immortal Loli, Zhao Dai, and millions of barbarians. For the safety of these people, Ning Fan had no choice but to rely on the grand formation of the 6 Unity Immortal Venerables. He also had no choice but to endure this matter. He did not say anything else. Instead, he directly climbed the stone steps of the mountain and climbed to the top of the mountain step by step. When he reached the height of 1,000 zhang, thousands of flame runes suddenly rushed out of the mountain forest. They turned into a huge flaming hand and grabbed at Ning Fan. At the same time, the voice of the 6 Unity Immortal Venerables resounded in Ning Fan's ears. Thousands of South Leaf Fire talismans will turn into a Leaf Fire palm imprint. It can kill a peak realm cultivator of the Crossing Truth realm. If you can't withstand this palm strike, you will die. This king doesn't believe that you're the immortal sovereign of all ancient times. This is a test. Ning Fan acted as if he did not hear the voice of the 6 Unity Immortal Venerable. His expression did not change at all. At the moment when the flaming palm approached him, he suddenly opened his mouth and swallowed the flaming palm, which was powerful enough to kill a peak crossing realm expert. Then, he continued to climb up without a change in expression, as if he was not injured at all. He continued to climb, and when he reached the 30,000 feet mark, another 3,000 flame runes suddenly flew out from the forest. They gathered together to form a huge cauldron of raging flames. It descended from the sky and pressed down on his head. The power of a single suppression was enough to kill any shedding void realm cultivator. In this desolate land filled with the power that forbade immortals, even an early-stage thought-shattering cultivator like Mounz might not be able to withstand the suppression of this cauldron, 3,000 southernly fire talismans to form the southernly cauldron. If you can't withstand this technique, you will die. The 6 combos Celestial Supremacy's voice was heard slowly. Ning Fan glanced at the fire cauldron coldly. Relying on the incredible power of his great 5 elements physique, he directly stretched his 5 fingers towards the sky and crushed the fire cauldron. Ning Fan swallowed all of the cauldron-breaking flames in one gulp. As for him, he continued to climb upwards and climbed all the way to the 60,000 feet mark. When he reached the 60,000 feet mark, the 6,000 fire talismans suddenly appeared and condensed into a beautiful fire devil lady with a voluptuous body. That beautiful lady's appearance was not considered as peerlessly beautiful. She could only be considered as an average beauty. However, her eyes were so charming as if water could drip out of them. As soon as she appeared, she immediately gave Ning Fan a flirtatious smile. Her eyes seemed to be able to ignite the lust of any man. That kind of lust was called the southernly fire of lust. It could incinerate any mid-shedding void realm cultivator to death. 6,000 southernly fire talismans. Can you withstand it? The 6 combos Celestial Supremacy's voice slowly resounded. Before his voice could stop, it suddenly turned into a soft eh. Ning Fan was not bewitched by the beautiful fire devil lady at all. He did not even feel a trace of lust just because of that beautiful lady's glance. It was as if he did not see the beautiful fire devil lady at all. He directly ignored her and continued to climb upwards. When the beautiful fire devil lady realized that she could not bewitch Ning Fan, she immediately revealed a look of hatred. She let out a sinister laugh and suddenly rushed towards Ning Fan. She even spat out a sword of void fire that was condensed from the fire of lust. She wanted to kill Ning Fan. The destructive power of this sword was almost at the level of a late-shedding void realm cultivator. Facing this sword, Ning Fan did not dodge at all. Instead, he allowed the sword of lust to slash at him. The sword was obviously extremely sharp. However, when it slashed at Ning Fan's body, the sound of metal colliding could be heard. Ning Fan did not rely on the defense of his physical body to block this sword. Instead, he relied on the 6 desires bone in his body. He had the physique of the 6 desires bone and the great 5 elements physique. He was not afraid of lust or fire. How could this sword hurt him? Stand down. Ning Fan suddenly turned his head and stared at the beautiful fire devil lady coldly. His gaze actually emitted a chilling aura, causing the fire talismans in her body to immediately go out of control. She let out a miserable shriek and directly exploded. Her body turned into countless fire talismans and flew back into the forest. After doing all this, Ning Fan continued to climb upwards. All the way to the peak, he did not encounter any more difficulties. At the peak of the first peak, there was only a lonely palace. When Ning Fan arrived at that place, his body flashed and directly appeared inside the palace. At the moment, there were 2 people standing inside the palace. One of them was a 6 directions immortal Venerate while the other one was Venerate Miao Yen. When the 6 directions immortal Venerate saw Ning Fan successfully arrive at that place, his eyes became extremely sharp. However, there was also a hint of surprise in his eyes. As for Venerate Miao Yen, she gave Ning Fan a friendly smile. However, there was also a hint of worry in her smile. She was worried about Ning Fan's safety. If Ning Fan encounters any danger on his way to the peak, she would certainly take action and save him. She would never allow the 6 directions immortal Venerate to harm him. I wonder why the 6 directions immortal Venerate has summoned me to this place. If there's nothing else, I will be returning to the 3rd peak. Ning Fan and the 6 directions immortal Venerate were 10 zhang away from each other. They stared at each other coldly. Even though his cultivation base was far weaker than the 6 directions immortal Venerate, if they really fight, the 6 directions immortal Venerate would not be able to gain any advantage. Cultivator Zhao Jian. Do you know which of the 9 orders and 16 prohibitions you have broken? The 6 directions immortal Venerate said expressionlessly. However, there was an innate coldness and arrogance in his expression. Ning Fan did not answer him. He just stared at the 6 directions Immortal Venerate quietly. Seeing that Ning Fan actually dared to ignore his question, the 6 directions Immortal Venerate finally frowned and showed a displeased expression. Venerate Miao Yen slowly walked to Ning Fan's side and stood side by side with him. She used her actions to show that she was on Ning Fan's side. Her beautiful eyes turned slightly cold as she said, "Fellow Taoist Lu, what you're doing now seems to be different from what you've said before. Didn't you say that you summoned fellow Taoist Zhao here because you have something to ask of him? Why are you making things difficult for him again and again? This seems to be a little too much." Oh. Fellow Taoist Miao Yen seems to be very protective of this junior. If he really is an ancient immortal venerate, I naturally have something to ask of him. The previous test was just to confirm his cultivation base. There's no need for fellow Taoist Miao Yen to get angry. As soon as he finished speaking, the 6 directions Immortal Venerate looked at Ning Fan again. The coldness in his eyes faded slightly and he said, "I have set up the 9 orders and 16 prohibitions. The 3rd order states that no one in the Southly Fire Formation is allowed to hide their identity. Otherwise, they will be regarded as someone with ulterior motives and will be killed. The 6th order states that no one who might endanger the safety of the fire formation is allowed to enter the fire formation. However, fellow Taoist Miao Yen told me that you are under the barbarian summoning technique of the barbarian race. Now, you are being chased by tens of thousands of wild beasts." After hearing what he said, Ning Fan looked at Venerate Miao Yen. Venerate Miao Yen revealed a guilty expression. She told the 6 directions Immortal Venerate about Ning Fan being under the barbarian summoning technique. Originally, she wanted to ask the 6 directions Immortal Venerate to help Ning Fan break the technique. However, she did not expect that it would become a reason for the 6 directions Immortal Venerate to pick a fight with him. "Cultivator Zhao Jian, you are under the barbarian summoning technique. You don't have the right to enter this place to hide. If you stay here, it is highly likely that you will attract the attacks of countless wild beasts. Countless cultivators will die because of you. This is not worth it. Even though fellow Taoist Miao Yen has asked me to help you get rid of the barbarian summoning technique in your body, why should I help you? All the more, you shouldn't continue to wear the ghost mask and hide your identity after entering this place. Take off your ghost mask and tell me your true identity. If you don't take off your ghost mask within 3 breaths. As soon as he said that, the 6 directions Immortal Venerate raised his finger and pointed at the ground. The entire first peak immediately shook and rumbled. The flame runes between heaven and earth surged madly towards Ning Fan as if they were going to attack him at any time. This time, it would no longer be 1,000, 3,000 or 6,000 flame runes attacking him. This time, it would be all the flame runes in the entire Southly Fire Formation. If the flame runes were to descend, it would be enough to kill all cultivators below the Immortal Venerable Realm. Enough. Venerate Miao Yan's beautiful eyes turned cold. He did not give those flame runes a chance to descend at all. He directly waved his hand and an extremely profound starlight was drawn between his fingers, dispersing all the flame runes. The reason why fellow Taoist 6 directions keeps making things difficult for fellow Taoist Zhao is just to find an excuse to test fellow Taoist Zhao's Immortal Venerable Realm cultivation base. Fine. I will do as you wish and test fellow Taoist Zhao's cultivation base for you. Of course, she would not attack Ning Fan. She produced a trace of purple starlight between her fingers and drew a line in front of her. The space in front of her was immediately cut open. What she opened was her natal kiliacosm. It was used to store some relatively precious items that she had to carry with her at all times. With a gentle wave of her palm, Venerate Miao Yen took out a treasure from her natal kiliacosm. She raised her head and smiled apologetically at Ning Fan. I have wronged fellow Taoist Zhao for what happened today. Initially, I plan to look for fellow Taoist Zhao after meeting Venerate 6 Directions and give you this treasure to thank you for saving my life. Now, however, I can take it out in front of you and use it to verify your immortal Venerable Realm cultivation base. Naturally, I can make 6 Directions speechless. Perhaps it was because she was too dissatisfied with Venerate 6 Directions, Venerate Miao Yen did not even address him as fellow Taoist anymore. She quietly took out the treasure without a trace of reluctance or heartache. From her point of view, no matter how precious this treasure was, it was not enough to repay Ning Fan for saving her life. As the light of the treasure spread, Ning Fan's expression actually changed a little. As for Venerate 6 Directions, he immediately became displeased and said with a stern voice. Miao Yen. You and I have already made a promise. After this treasure has been nurtured, you will sell it to me at the price of 3 monarch spiritual fruits. Why are you giving it to someone else? Promise? I seem to have only promised to consider this matter. I have never promised fellow Taoist anything else. Now, however, I want to give this treasure to fellow Taoist Zhao. He. What can you do to me? Venerate Miao Yen giggled and turned to look at Ning Fan. When she saw the change in Ning Fan's eyes which only flashed for a second, she could not help but praise Ning Fan's calmness inwardly. Chapter 9-10. Even a 6-unity immortal Venerate who had always been gloomy was extremely tempted by this item. He was even angered by it. Ning Fan, on the other hand, was only moved for a moment before he calmed himself down. Comparing the two of them, Venerate Miao Yen naturally valued Ning Fan more. What she took out was a small tree that glowed with 7-colored luster. It was planted in a jade pot. The soil inside the jade pot had a strong great Dao Qi. It should be Dao soil without a doubt. I didn't expect that what Venerate Miao Yen wants to give me is actually the Tree of 7 Wonders. Ning Fan was rather surprised. He took a light breath and said to Venerate Miao Yen. This item is too valuable. I can't accept it. His tone actually sounded a little decisive. After hearing what he said, Venerate Miao Yen looked at Ning Fan with even more respect and said with a smile, even though this item has a great reputation, it is just a seedling. Its value isn't as great as what fellow Taoist imagines. Fellow Taoist, you can just accept it. Could it be that in your eyes, my life is not as valuable as a small tree? Besides, don't you need a treasure tree like this to prove your cultivation base? What Venerate Miao Yen said was, of course, just a polite remark. Even if the Tree of 7 Wonders was just a seedling, its value was also immeasurable. It was definitely not something that could be bought with Dao crystals. The leaves of this tree were divided into 7 different colors. They were made of different materials: purple gold, silver, colored glass, crystal, shell, coral and amber. Therefore, this tree could emit 7-colored light. The Tree of 7 Wonders that had yet to recognize a master was called a seedling. Once it recognizes a master, 7-colored runes would appear on the trunk of the tree. There were 2 ways to increase the number of 7-colored runes. One was when the tree recognized a master for the first time, and the other was when it was watered in the future. As the number of runes increased, the Tree of 7 Wonders would grow bit by bit. Every time it grew to a height of 100 zhang, it would provide certain benefits to the tree owner. When this tree grows to a height of 1000 zhang, it could even be used to refine innate magic treasures. If that was all, it was not enough to show the value of this tree. The biggest value of this tree was that it could protect the Tao protector of a person when it was planted to a height of 10,000 zhang and could increase the chances of becoming a sage expert. Of course, this was only a legend. Within the 4 heavens, the Tree of 7 Wonders was already rare, and no one had ever been able to grow it to a height of 10,000 feet. In the Western Heaven, there was a Buddhist emperor who, after a few trials and tribulations, managed to grow a Tree of 7 Wonders to a height of 3,000 meters, and refined it into a pre-celestial treasure. Among pre-celestial treasures of the same level, there weren't many that could withstand a single brush from the tree. Although what Venerable Miao Yen gave Ning Fan was just a young branch of the Seven Wonders tree, its value was already extraordinary. In order to buy this tree from Miao Yen, the Six Combos Immortal Supremacy had even offered 3 monarch spiritual fruits. How much does the monarch spiritual fruit cost? If he sold it for Tao crystals, a D spiritual fruit could be sold for at least 2 trillion Tao crystals. Although this tree is young, it is already very precious. Immortal Venerable should keep it for himself. Before Ning Fan could finish his words, he was interrupted by a 6-unity Immortal Venerate. What he said makes sense. Giving him the tree is really a waste. Why don't you sell it to this prince? Venerated Miao Yen gently shook his head. He looked at Ning Fan and asked seriously. Fellow Taoist Zhao, do you really not want this tree? I have a habit that fellow Taoist Zhao might not know about. If something that I've given out is returned by someone, I'll destroy it directly, no matter how valuable it is. What she meant was that if Ning Fan refused to accept the tree, she would rather destroy it. If fellow Taoist Ning isn't willing to accept this tree because you're worried about the problem with the 7-colored rune, I've already thought of a way to help you cheat. The last sentence was said through voice transmission. First step cultivators did not have the strength to make the sapling recognize an owner. If they forced it, the tree would devour their cultivation. Only second step cultivators were qualified to recognize the wonderful 7 treasure tree as its master, but the number of 7-colored runes that appeared was different for different cultivation levels. Those who could cause 10 7-colored runes to appear on the Tree of 7 Wonders for the first time were at least at the Ghost Xian realm. To be able to produce 100 runes, one must at least have the cultivation of Duzhen. Those who could summon more than 1,000 runes at once were at least Space Shatterer cultivators. The only thing that could make the Tree of 7 Wonders produce 10,000 runes for the first time was the fragmentary thought. If an ancient immortal venerable recognizes the tree as its master, it would be able to produce at least 50,000 7-colored runes during the first time. Due to such a custom, Venerable Miao Yen took out the Tree of 7 Wonders for Ning Fan to recognize as its master to prove that Ning Fan had the cultivation base of an immortal venerable. To be honest, Venerable Miao Yen was not sure whether Ning Fan's real cultivation base had reached the eternal ancient realm or not. It was just a guess. If Ning Fan was really an immortal venerable, this tree could naturally prove his cultivation base. If Ning Fan was not an immortal venerable, Venerable Miao Yen had another way to help Ning Fan cheat and make the tree produce more than 50,000 7-colored runes at once. That way, 6 Unity Immortal Venerables would not have a reason to make things difficult for Ning Fan. To water the Tree of 7 Wonders, you must use the Tao Spring. I happen to have a small bottle of 6th grade Tao Spring. Once I use it. Venerable Miao Yen secretly transmitted his voice to Ning Fan sincerely. Ning Fan gave Venerable Miao Yen a deep look and replied through telepathy. Thank you. He was not a pretentious person. Since Venerable Miao Yen had already said so much, if he still refuses to accept the Tree of 7 Wonders, it would seem too pretentious. He was also not a person who did not know what was good for him. Since others were kind enough to help him, he naturally would not reject them coldly. I, Zhao, will accept this tree. Ning Fan took a deep breath and approached the tree step by step. He pointed a finger at the tree and a drop of blood essence immediately flew towards the tree. The expression of the 6 Unity Immortal Venerables changed immediately. He raised his hand, trying to stop Ning Fan from recognizing the tree as its master. The Tree of 7 Wonders could only recognize one person in its entire life and it could not be changed. If Ning Fan recognizes this tree as its master, he would not be able to take it back even if he tries to snatch it. Just as he was about to unleash his ability, Venerable Miao Yen moved slightly to the side and stopped him in midair. I have already given this tree to fellow Taoist Zhao. Fellow Taoist Lu He, it's better if you don't act recklessly. I have another habit that you don't seem to know. If I find someone pleasing to my eyes, I won't allow others to harm him. Venerable Miao Yan's phoenix-like eyes turned cold. Her words were filled with hidden threats. Obviously, if Lu He insisted on attacking her, she would shed all pretenses of cordiality with him for Ning Fan. Lu He's gloomy expression changed rapidly. In the end, he suppressed all his dissatisfaction and put away his expression. He closed his eyes as if he was meditating. He would no longer stop Ning Fan from recognizing the Tree of Seven Wonders as its master. It was not worth it to offend Venerable Miao Yan for a sapling of the Tree of Seven Wonders. He looked down on Ning Fan. He could doubt Ning Fan's strength, but he would never doubt Venerable Miao Yan's strength. During the great calamity of the savage world, it was unwise to have an internal conflict with Venerable Miao Yan for a treasured tree, and Ning Fan, Ting Nan and Ting Bei have already reported to me about this young man's outstanding achievements. However, I don't believe that this young man can kill 3 immortal venerables in a row. If he really has such strength, why would he need to come to this Southly Fire formation? Why would he need to endure my provocation? He could just attack me directly. If he really has such strength, who in the savage world can stop him? Moreover, this young man has been affected by the barbarian summoning technique. If he stays in the Southly Fire formation, he will certainly bring me endless troubles. According to my character, I would naturally get rid of such troubles as soon as possible. However, Miao Yan has been protecting this young man. The only thing that I didn't expect was the importance of this young man in Miao Yan's heart. Forget it. I will give Miao Yan some face. Let's see how many runes this young man can make the Tree of Seven Wonders appear. Although Venerable Lu He closed his eyes and pretended to be asleep, his spirit sense was always paying attention to the Tree of Seven Wonders. Suddenly, his tone turned indifferent and said to Ning Fan, "How about we make a bet? If you can make the Tree of Seven Wonders produce more than 50,000 runes, I will give you 3 monarch spiritual fruits. If you can't, I won't hurt you as long as you leave the Southly Fire formation obediently. Do you dare to agree to this bet? If you don't, I won't force you." Ning Fan ignored Venerable Lu He. He would not easily make a bet that he was not confident about. At the moment when the blood essence flew into the Tree of Seven Wonders, he raised his palm and pressed it on the tree. Immediately, rays of 7-colored light enshrouded the Tree of Seven Wonders. Within the light, the first 7-colored runes began to appear and hovered around the Tree of Seven Wonders. After the first runes, the second, third and fourth runes appeared. Ning Fan closed his eyes. Beneath his eyelids, green light flickered intensely. Even though he did not open his eyes, he could clearly feel the flow of all the Tao laws surrounding the Tree of Seven Wonders. From the flow of those Tao laws, Ning Fan gradually gained enlightenment. The number of runes that appeared during the first acknowledgement of the Tree of Seven Wonders was certainly related to the cultivation base of the owner. However, it was also closely related to other factors. The same immortal venerables with the same amount of magic power, some of them could condense 50,000 7-colored runes while some could condense 80,000 or 100,000 runes. The first factor that determined the number of runes on the Tree of Seven Wonders was one's cultivation base, bloodline and Tao comprehension. Ning Fan's cultivation base might not be very high, but the grade of his bloodline was much higher than that of a 6-unity immortal venerate. As for the depth of his Tao comprehension, it had already reached the 2nd level of the heavenly being realm. There were only a few people in this world who could be on par with Ning Fan. 6-unity immortal venerates could not even be compared to him. With Ning Fan's cultivation base, he might not be able to make the Tree of Seven Wonders produce more than 50,000 runes. However, if he takes his bloodline and Tao comprehension into consideration, it would not be difficult for him to produce 50,000 runes. Are you really not going to accept this bet? The 6-unity immortal venerate spoke again. This time, Ning Fan looked at the 6-unity immortal venerate with a strange expression and asked in return. "Venerate, I think you will regret making this bet with me." "Regret? I have never regretted anything I do. What's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. What's won is won and what's lost is lost. My Tao is the Tao of an emperor. The winner is the king and the loser is the bandit. As long as we rely on our own capabilities, I will certainly not have any complaints. However, if I use other people's strength to cheat, I will definitely not sit and watch. The six Unity Immortal Venerate seem to have expected that Venerate wise words might secretly help Ning Fan. Since Venerate never regrets his actions, I will accept this bet with you. Let's see if I can make the tree produce more than 50,000 runes with my current strength without any external help. Upon hearing his words, the six Unity Immortal Venerate burst into laughter. He opened his eyes and flicked his sleeve. Immediately, 3 brocade boxes appeared in mid-air and spun in the air. The 3 brocade boxes contained the monarch's spiritual fruits. They were the stakes of the bet. If he accepts the bet, he would naturally hand over the monarch's spiritual fruits. After all, he still did not believe that Ning Fan could produce more than 50,000 runes. He also did not think that he would lose. Ning Fan closed his eyes tightly. After making the bet, he did not say another word. His cultivation base was originally at the mid-crossing truth realm. Normally, cultivators at the crossing truth realm could only produce 100 runes. 7 colored runes kept appearing around the tree of 7 wonders. When the number of 7 colored runes reached 500, the rate of increase began to slow down. When the number of runes reached 800, the speed of increase was as slow as a turtle's crawl. When the number of 7 colored runes reached 926, it seemed to have reached its limit and could not increase any further. The 6 Unity Immortal Venerate was stunned. Could it be that Ning Fan's true cultivation base is just at the crossing truth realm? He could not produce 1,000 runes, but he had not even reached the standard of the shedding void realm, 1,000 runes. Even though he did not think that Ning Fan was an immortal venerate, he did not think that Ning Fan was just at the crossing truth realm either. Venerate Miao Yen, on the other hand, was even more certain that Ning Fan was not a cultivator at the crossing truth realm. She inwardly guessed that Ning Fan was probably doing something similar to storing his power, wanting to amaze everyone with a single brilliant feat. Of course, the two of them did not know that they had overestimated Ning Fan. The number of 926 runes was Ning Fan's true strength. If he only relied on his cultivation base, he could only produce so many 7-colored runes. However, if the grade of his bloodline is included, currently, I have 4 types of bloodlines in my body: divine, demon, devil and tribulation. Among them, the tribulation bloodline has the lowest grade, which is only at the 7 stars broken bloodline. Ning Fan's eyes turned solemn. He secretly activated the aura force of the tribulation bloodline in his body. He did not release the aura force at all but hid it in his palm. Even so, as soon as he activated the aura force of the tribulation bloodline, the number of runes around the 7 treasures wondrous tree increased rapidly. 927 runes, 928 runes, 929 runes. The Taitsung tribulation spirit with the 7 stars broken bloodline was equivalent to a late crossing truth realm cultivator. With the addition of the aura force of his bloodline, the number of 7-colored runes increased all the way to 1157 runes before stopping. The number of runes isn't increasing again. 1157 runes is equivalent to the early shedding void realm. The 6 Unity Immortal Venerate shook his head, thinking that the number of runes would definitely increase. At the very least, he had regarded Ning Fan as a thought-breaking realm cultivator. In his impression, the reason why Ning Fan did not die after being hit by Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon's 7 Truths 7 Illusions arrow must be because his cultivation base was not within the range of the Duzhen and Shedding Void realm. Therefore, it was highly possible that he was at the thought-breaking realm. If Ning Fan really has the cultivation base of the thought-breaking realm, with some special techniques, it would make sense for him to perform the shocking actions of saving Miao Yen and killing the barbaric ancestor, 1157 runes. It's not his full strength. It should still increase, the six-unity immortal venerate thought with certainty. As expected, when Ning Fan withdrew the aura force of his tribulation blood and activated the aura force of his divine blood, the number of runes on the treasured tree increased again. The grade of Ning Fan's divine blood was at the king grade. However, it was not an ordinary divine blood. Instead, it was the true blood of an ancient god. The true blood of an ancient god was extremely rare in the current world. Moreover, the number of his heart orifices had reached 3. In that case, his divine blood became extraordinary. As soon as he activated the aura force of his divine blood, the number of 7-colored runes immediately skyrocketed all the way until it reached 3072 runes. After the number of runes reached such a number, Ning Fan did not stop and activated the aura force of his demon bloodline again. His demon bloodline was the Fu Li bloodline. The grade of his bloodline had reached the level of ancestral blood. Originally, he had 4 drops of ancestral blood. After burning 1 drop that day, he was left with 3 drops. A demon cultivator with 3 drops of ancestral blood would certainly be an immortal king realm old monster in any of the large true spirit clans. Therefore, as soon as Ning Fan activated the aura force of his demon bloodline, the number of 7-colored runes on the wondrous tree of 7 treasures immediately skyrocketed. In every breath, more than 1,000 new runes would be born. The speed at which the runes were increasing was absolutely shocking. Within 10 breaths, the number of runes on the treasured tree had reached more than 15,000. After 60 breaths, the number of runes on the treasured tree directly broke through to about 71,000. The 6-unity immortal venerate took a step forward, as if he wanted to go closer to see if these runes were fake. After making sure that the runes were not fake, he carefully studied venerate wise words. His eyes were filled with suspicion as if he was doubting that venerate wise words had helped him. However, he saw a hint of astonishment in venerate wise words' eyes. Obviously, the number of 71,000 runes was not venerate wise words' help. Ning Fan condensed them with his own methods. Venerate wise words was secretly shocked. What he was shocked about was naturally that Ning Fan condensed 71,000 runes as if there was no one else around him. An ordinary immortal venerate would definitely not be able to condense such a number of runes. Those who could condense such a number of runes were at least some powerful immortal venerates. 71,000 runes. Could this young man really be an immortal venerate? If he's really an immortal venerate, why? Hiss. The number of runes increased again. Venerate 6-unity immortal venerate was already doubting his own speculation. At the next moment, his eyes widened again. When the number of runes reached 71,000, it stopped for a moment and then began to increase again. This time, the number of runes increased all the way to 110,000 before it stopped. This time, Ning Fan used the aura force of his devil blood. His devil bloodline was the Mo Luo bloodline, which was not as rare as the Fu Li bloodline. However, he had 4 drops of ancestral blood, which was more than the Fu Li clan's ancestral blood. Thus, the increase in the number of runes would not be too bad. The 6-unity immortal venerate's eyes were filled with astonishment. 110,000 runes. Only an immortal king realm expert could achieve such a number. No. This young man is definitely not an immortal king. If he is an immortal king, I won't be his match at all. If I provoke him, he will definitely attack me. He isn't an immortal king, but how do I explain the number of runes? The 6-unity immortal venerate was unable to calm himself down. Just as he was pondering, he suddenly saw Ning Fan open his eyes. He did not see the green light that flashed across Ning Fan's eyes. That green light was formed from all the green chi of the second level of the heavenly being realm. He only felt that Ning Fan's eyes at this moment were filled with vicissitudes and strange. It was as if he could see through everything in the world. The 6-unity immortal venerate had never seen anyone with such a strange gaze before. Even among the 28 ancient star constellation emperors of the four majestic sects, none of them had such a gaze. Even the gaze of a quasi-saint might not be able to see through people's hearts like Ning Fan. That feeling of being able to see through everything disappeared in a flash. It never appeared in Ning Fan's eyes again. It made the six combos immortal venerate feel as if he had seen through everything. It made the six unity immortal venerate feel that the feeling he had just had was just an illusion. He did not know that that gaze was the result of Ning Fan using the green qi of the second level of the heavenly being realm. There were three variables that could determine the number of runes on the Tree of Seven Wonders: cultivation level, bloodline, and Tao comprehension. With Ning Fan's cultivation level, he could only make the number of runes reach 926. With the addition of the 4 grades of his bloodline, he could make the number of runes exceed 110,000. Now, he had the Tao comprehension of the second level of the heavenly being realm. With such a high level of comprehension, the runes surrounding the Tree of Seven Wonders kept appearing. 120,000 runes, 130,000 runes, 140,000 runes. The number of runes increased all the way to 1.35 million runes before stopping. Even ordinary immortal emperors would not be able to achieve such a number. Could Ning Fan be an immortal emperor? Of course not. The six unity immortal venerate would not believe that Ning Fan was an immortal emperor. However, he could not understand how Ning Fan made the number of runes on the Tree of Seven Wonders reach 1.35 million. He stared at the Tree of Seven Wonders blankly as if he was in a daze. He almost suspected that this Tree of Seven Wonders was fake. If it's not fake, then this Tree of Seven Wonders must be damaged. If, no matter what the six unity immortal venerate thought, his gaze when he looked at Ning Fan was no longer as rude as before. Instead, it was filled with fear. The more unknown something was, the more fearful it would be. The six unity immortal venerate could not see what method Ning Fan had used to produce 1.35 million runes. It seems like I've won this bet. Ning Fan gave the six unity immortal venerate a deep look, secretly warning him. He believed that even if the six unity immortal venerate did not believe that he had an immortal emperor realm cultivation base, he would certainly be extremely afraid of him because of the number of 1.35 million runes and would not dare to act recklessly. The six unity immortal venerate did not have a good personality. However, he had always been willing to accept his loss. After all, this was the Tao that he cultivated and he would not easily go against it. In the end, he lost the 3 monarch spiritual fruits to Ning Fan. Suddenly, she sent a voice transmission to Ning Fan. Did you sprinkle a large amount of mid-grade Tao spring on the Tree of Seven Wonders using a method that I can't see? No. Ning Fan gave Venerate Miao Yen a strange look. If he could really hide from Miao Yen and the six unity immortal venerate's eyes and ears, he would at least have the strength comparable to an immortal venerate. He did not have such strength. However, Venerate Miao Yen would rather believe that Ning Fan had secretly done something that she could not see through. Ning Fan flicked his sleeve and kept the 3 brocade boxes that contained the monarch's spiritual fruits. Just as he was about to keep the Tree of Seven Wonders as well, his eyes suddenly flashed with light. He saw that the small jade pot could no longer contain the roots of the Tree of Seven Wonders. The roots directly pierced through the pot like thorns and grew out crazily. As for the Tree of Seven Wonders, which was originally 7 chi tall, it began to grow at a crazy speed, absorbing the 1.35 million runes. In just 10 breaths of time, it had grown to 135 zhang tall. It directly pierced through the roof of the main hall and continued to grow upwards. Every time the Tree of Seven Wonders grew to a height of 100 zhang, it would give the tree owner great benefits. At this moment, the Tree of Seven Wonders that Ning Fan had subdued was already 135 zhang tall. Its height had exceeded the bottleneck of 100 zhang. Naturally, it would give Ning Fan a great benefit. Suddenly, 7 fruits flew out of the Tree of Seven Wonders. Each of them had different qualities. They were purple gold, silver, colored glass, crystal, shell, coral and amber. The 7 fruits turned into 7 rays of light and directly flew into Ning Fan's dantian. Then, they directly melted inside his dantian. All of a sudden, 7 traces of energy appeared in Ning Fan's body. They flowed wildly inside his body and refined themselves, turning into Ning Fan's magic power. Ning Fan's cultivation base had already reached the mid-true crossing realm. However, after absorbing the energy from the 7 fruits, his magic power actually increased rapidly, all the way to the late true crossing realm. Only when it was close to the late true crossing realm did it stop. The whole process only took less than 10 breaths of time. However, the amount of Ning Fan's magic power had increased by more than a few times. Even though he had yet to break through to the late true crossing realm, it was certainly not far away from him. Planting a tree actually had such a benefit. All of a sudden, Ning Fan was looking forward to the tree of 7 wonders. What a pity. The fruits that grow from a height of 100 zhang are not very useful to us venerates. Venerate Miao Yen sighed softly and comforted Ning Fan. In her opinion, Ning Fan was a dignified venerate. He might not be satisfied with the energy contained in the 7 fruits. Of course, she did not know that Ning Fan had already obtained great benefits from the tree despite his low cultivation base. 3 chapters are completed. I will try to do 2 chapters tomorrow. Chapter 9-11. The 7 Treasures Wondrous Tree gave Ning Fan a huge boost in his magic power. The day when he broke through to the late true crossing realm was not far away. After keeping the 7 Treasures Wondrous Tree, Ning Fan looked at the 6 Unity Immortal Venerate and saw a hint of fear in his eyes. The 35 million 7-colored runes had successfully intimidated the 6 Unity Immortal Venerate. Even ordinary immortal emperors might not be able to achieve such a result. However, Ning Fan had done it. This young man is definitely not an immortal emperor nor an immortal king. Otherwise, he would be able to do whatever he wants in the desolate land. Why would he need to hide in my Southly Fire Formation? The reason why he could condense 35 million runes must be because he borrowed some kind of external force. Even though he did, it's enough to prove that he's extraordinary to be able to do it under my nose. This brat has a ghostly face, hiding his head but showing his tail. Even with my cultivation base, I can't see through his true cultivation base. But I think his cultivation base might really have reached the eternal ancient realm. If that's the case, even if I don't care about Miao Yen and just look at his strength, I shouldn't offend him too much. The 6 Unity Immortal Venerate's expression remained unchanged. However, he secretly decided not to provoke Ning Fan unless it's necessary. When he looked at Ning Fan again, his eyes were a little more polite. This was the result that Ning Fan wanted. With this deterrence, the 6 Unity Immortal Venerate probably won't find trouble with me anymore. Ning Fan thought to himself. Ning Fan was displeased with the 6 Unity Immortal Venerate's previous actions of making things difficult for him. However, he did not turn against him in the end. The Southly Fire Formation belonged to the 6 Unity Immortal Venerate. It was the base of the human cultivators and there were 2 human immortal venerates guarding it. Staying here could provide better protection for the immortal lowly, Zhao Dai, and the millions of barbarians. However, if he leaves this place, he might be attacked by a large number of savage beasts and barbarian ancestors. In order to use the power of the 2 immortal venerates and the Southly Fire Formation to protect the people of Heaven Barbarian City, Ning Fan did not want his relationship with the 6 Unity Immortal Venerate to turn sour. As long as this 6 Unity Immortal Venerate doesn't cross my bottom line, I can forget what happened today. Ning Fan's bottom line was the immortal lowly, Zhao Dai, and the millions of barbarians. For the sake of their safety, Ning Fan could tolerate what happened just now. For their safety, Ning Fan could also do all kinds of shocking things. This was the bottom line. This was his Tao. I already believe that fellow Taoist Zhao has the cultivation of an immortal sovereign. Therefore, I would like to make a request to fellow Daoist Zhao. I hope fellow Daoist Zhao will not refuse. The 6 combination celestial sovereign's tone was much more polite than before. Request. What does the 6 combos immortal supremacy want from me? Ning Fan's eyes flickered. If he followed his heart, he would not agree to any of the 6 Unity Immortal Venerate's personal requests. This prince's request is not a private matter, but an official matter. This matter is definitely not beyond your ability. Fellow Daoist Zhao doesn't need to worry about this, and I hope that fellow Daoist Zhao won't refuse. After saying that, the 6 combination immortal supremacy slowly stated his request. 1 hour later, Ning Fan and venerated Miao Yen walked out of the palace together and left the first peak. Ning Fan's expression was somewhat complicated. The 6 combination immortal supremacy's request was for Ning Fan to guard the 3rd peak of the Southleaf Fire Formation and become the peak lord of it. The Southleaf Fire Formation was the defensive grand formation of the human race's base. There were 3 fire peaks in the formation. Each of the 3 fire peaks was sealed with countless fire runes. Those runes were called Li Fire runes. The first peak was 9,000 zhang tall. There were a total of 9 million Li Fire runes sealed in it. The second peak was 6,000 zhang tall. There were only 6 million Li Fire runes sealed in it. The third peak was 1,000 zhang tall. There were only 1 million Li Fire runes sealed in it. The power of the Southleaf Fire Formation was closely related to the total number of runes that were unsealed in the 3 fire peaks. The more runes that were unsealed, the stronger the grand formation would be. The first peak had always been guarded by a 6 combination immortal supremacy. With his strength, he could barely unseal 7 million runes from the first peak. That was already his limit. As for the remaining 2 million runes, he could not unseal them. Before Miao Yen and Ning Fan arrived, the second and third peaks did not have any peak lords guarding them. Thus, the runes inside the peaks had always been sealed. The cultivation bases of ordinary thought-breaking realm cultivators were suppressed by the power of the forbidden immortal realm. Thus, they were too weak to unseal the runes inside the peaks. What the 6 combination immortal supremacy meant was for Miao Yen to guard the second peak and unseal the 6 million runes inside it. As for Ning Fan, he would guard the third peak and unseal the 1 million runes inside it. In that case, the total number of runes in the Southleaf Fire Formation would increase from the previous 7 million to 14 million. The power of the Grand Formation would at least double. If any savage beasts, barbarian ancestors or immortal venerables of the demon race were to invade the Southleaf Fire Formation, they would be able to defend themselves better after the Southleaf Fire Formation was strengthened. I didn't expect that a 6 combination immortal supremacy would actually ask me to take over the third peak and become the peak lord of it. Ning Fan muttered to himself. Becoming the peak lord of the third peak and unsealing the runes inside it could increase the power of the Southleaf Fire Formation. It could then better protect the cultivators and barbarians inside the formation. This was not a personal request of the 6 combination immortal supremacy but an official matter. Therefore, Ning Fan did not reject it. I'm going to head to the second peak now. Fellow Daoist Zhao, you've been struck by the barbarian summoning evil technique of the 5th generation barbaric ancestor. Do you feel any discomfort? After flying out of the range of the first peak, Miao Yen suddenly asked Ning Fan with concern. It's all right. I don't feel any discomfort. Thank you for your concern, Venerable Supremacy. Other than the backlash of his barbarian mark, the barbarian mark on Ning Fan's left side did not feel any discomfort. Ning Fan responded with a kind smile towards Miao Yan's concern. To be honest, I have some kind of secret technique. If you have 3 immortal venerables to protect you, you can even break the barbarian summoning evil technique. However, this technique has a drawback. It might cost you some of your cultivation base. Initially, I wanted to ask fellow Daoist 6 combination to help you break the barbarian summoning evil technique. However, I didn't expect that it would bring you so much trouble. Fortunately, everything is over now." Miao Yan's tone was full of apology. If it wasn't for her revealing the fact that Ning Fan was afflicted with the barbarian summoning evil technique, it wouldn't have brought him so much trouble and almost caused him to fall out with Venerable Six combination. Her intention was good, but she almost made things worse. Now, Lu He's attitude towards you has changed. If fellow Taoist Zhao needs it, I can ask Lu He to help. With the addition of your daughter and me, the three of us will protect you. I'm sure that we can break the barbarian summoning evil technique in your body. Fellow Taoist Zhao, do you need my help to break the barbarian summoning evil technique? If you need it, just tell me. Miao Yan's expression was very sincere. Ning Fan had saved her life. If he needed help, she would naturally not sit idly by. The barbarian summoning evil technique had brought Ning Fan a lot of trouble, but it wasn't completely without benefits. Ning Fan pondered for a moment and answered. Thank you for your kindness. Since Venerable has treated me with sincerity, I won't hide it from you anymore. This barbarian summoning evil technique may not be a bad thing for me. If I don't break it, it might even be an opportunity. I don't intend to break the barbarian summoning evil technique for the time being. If there's a need, I will certainly ask Venerable for help. Oh. The barbarian summoning evil technique of the barbarian race can become an opportunity for fellow Taoist? Miao Yan was slightly surprised, but she didn't ask any further. After knowing that Ning Fan wasn't troubled by the barbarian summoning evil technique, Venerable Miao Yan no longer mentioned this matter. After chatting with Ning Fan for a while, she returned to the second peak. As for Ning Fan, he returned to the third peak alone. After giving some instructions to Immortal Loli and the others, he directly went to the peak of the third peak. The peak of the third peak was barren. There were no plants or palaces. As soon as Ning Fan stepped on the ground, a scorching wave of air rushed towards him. That wave of air was enough to threaten the life of a first-step cultivator, but it naturally couldn't hurt Ning Fan at all. With a sway of his body, Ning Fan went into the profound Yin world. Although Ning Fan suffered some difficulties when he was summoned to the first peak by Lu He, he also gained a lot of benefits. He obtained the 7 treasures wondrous tree from Venerable Miao Yan. As soon as he entered the profound Yin world, he planted the tree near the cave in the western world. Currently, the 7 treasures wondrous tree was already 135 zhang tall. If it grows to 2000 zhang tall, it would bring Ning Fan more benefits. In order to make the tree grow taller, he needed to increase the number of 7 colored runes on the tree. After the tree recognized him as its master, there was only one way left to increase the number of runes on the tree. And that was to water the tree with Tao spring water to accelerate its growth. Tao spring water was also known as the Great Tao spring water. It was a type of spiritual spring water that was rarely seen. It had 9 grades from the 1st grade to the 9th grade. The 9th grade was the lowest grade while the 1st grade was the highest. Along the way, Ning Fan had been killing people and seizing their treasures. Occasionally, he would also obtain some 9th and 8th grade Tao springs. Since they were useless to him, he could use them to water the 7 treasures wondrous tree. A small bottle of a 9th grade Tao spring water could be sold for 10 million Tao crystals. A small bottle of an 8th grade Tao spring water could be sold for 50 million Tao crystals. Ning Fan had a total of hundreds of bottles of Tao spring water in his hands. He watered the 7 treasures wondrous tree one by one. After watering the tree with hundreds of bottles of Tao spring water, the number of runes on the tree immediately increased slightly. There were about 200 more of them. More than 200 runes had only made the tree grow 2 inches taller. If these Tao springs in my hands are converted into Tao crystals, they are worth a few billion Tao crystals. However, they are only enough to make the tree grow 2 inches taller. Ning Fan was speechless inwardly. From the looks of it, it would be impossible to make the tree grow to 200 zhang tall without hundreds of billions of Tao crystals. This 7 treasures wondrous tree is really a money-burning tree. The Tao springs in my hands have already been used up. I can only wait until I buy some more Tao springs in the future to water the tree. Ning Fan then took out the 3 brocade boxes that contained the monarch's spiritual fruits and studied them carefully. He had won 3 monarch spiritual fruits from a bet with a 6 unity immortal venerate. These monarch spiritual fruits could be considered as a great harvest. The monarch spiritual fruit was an immortal fruit that was unique to the southern heaven immortal world. After consuming it, it could increase the amount of sovereign qi in a cultivator's body. Having enough sovereign qi was one of the important conditions to advance to the immortal emperor realm. This immortal fruit could assist in the cultivation of sovereign qi. Therefore, it was naturally priceless. Every time a monarch spiritual fruit appeared in the world, it would be snatched by the old monsters of the eternal ancient realm. The energy contained within the monarch spiritual fruit was too massive. To consume it, one must at least possess the cultivation base of the eternal ancient realm. Otherwise, most of its medicinal power would be wasted. To Ning Fan, the eternal ancient realm was still very far away. My current cultivation base is still not strong enough to consume the monarch spiritual fruit. I don't have to be in a hurry to cultivate my sovereign qi. I'll keep these 3 monarch spiritual fruits until I reach the eternal ancient realm. Ning Fan kept the 3 monarch spiritual fruits in his cave dwelling in the western world. With a flash, he left the profound Yin world and returned to the peak of the 3rd peak. He casually took out a small golden house from his storage pouch and activated it. The small house grew in the wind and slowly turned into a majestic golden palace. With a loud rumble, it landed on the peak of the mountain. This golden house was a heavenly dwelling magic treasure. Its grade was not high. Ning Fan could have as many low-grade magic treasures as he wanted. Ning Fan slowly walked into the golden palace and stood there with his hands clasped behind his back, waiting quietly. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, a group of cultivators flew to the peak of the 3rd peak and waited outside the golden palace. This group of cultivators consisted of 13 people. All of them were experts from the Shek Kong realm of the Yin High War Division. The person leading the group was the commander of the Yin High War Division, Old Monster Sang Chong. The reason why Sang Chong came to this place was because he had received the order from the 6 Unity Immortal Venerate to deliver the formation flag of the 3rd peak to Ning Fan. He held a jade box with a seal on it and said respectfully towards the Golden Palace. Junior Sang Chong requests to see Senior. Come in. Ning Fan said indifferently. Yes. Sang Chong led the group of Shek Kong realm old monsters into the Golden Palace and handed the jade box to Ning Fan respectfully. Junior has received the order from the 6 Unity Immortal Venerate to hand over the formation flag of the 3rd peak to Senior. Please examine it. Sang Chong did not even dare to breathe loudly in front of Ning Fan as he was afraid that he would anger Ning Fan. He also did not dare to spread out his spirit sense to check on Ning Fan. Ning Fan devouring his spirit sense had already left a shadow in his heart. Therefore, when he faced Ning Fan now, he could not help but feel a sense of respect. Is this the formation flag of the 3rd peak? Ning Fan tore off the seal on the jade box and took out a small fiery red flag. On the flag, the words 3rd peak of the South Separation Mountain were written in divine seal script. Only by possessing this formation flag could one become the peak lord of the 3rd peak and unseal the Li fire runes on the fire peak. This formation flag had been specially refined by the 6 Unity Immortal Venerate. Without his permission, no one could activate the power of this flag at all. Moreover, if the 6 Unity Immortal Venerate uses his will, this flag would immediately return to his hand. No one could take it away from him. The flag has been delivered. Senior Zhao, please quickly activate your technique and unseal the 1 million runes on the 3rd peak. We are all fire cultivators. We are willing to stay here and protect Senior. Sang Chong's tone was extremely respectful, but he was complaining inwardly. The reason why the six Unity Immortal Venerate sent him here was to deliver the flag to Ning Fan and also to protect him. Unsealing the Li Fire runes was an extremely dangerous task. Even a six Unity Immortal Venerate would need someone to protect him from the side. On that day, the six Unity Immortal Venerate unsealed 7 million runes from the first peak and invited a total of 24 old monsters to protect him. Among the 24 people, 4 of them were thought-breaking realm experts while the rest of them had cultivation bases above Shikong. On that day, Sang Chong was not one of the protectors. Thus, he did not know the exact situation of the protectors. The only thing he knew was that after the six Unity Immortal Venerate successfully unsealed the 7 million Li Fire runes, among the 24 old monsters who were protecting him, 17 of them were severely injured while the other 7 suffered light injuries. Teng Nan and Teng Bei have been sent to the second peak by the six Unity Immortal Venerate to protect Miao Yan. As for me, I was sent here to protect Senior Zhao Jian. Sigh. It's too dangerous to be a protector. I'm afraid I'm going to suffer some injuries today. Sang Chong sighed inwardly. The 12 Shikong old monsters behind him also had a sorrowful expression on their faces. The 13 of them each took out their Dao weapons and magic treasures to protect themselves. They surrounded Ning Fan and set up a formation in the palace. Each of them wore a solemn expression. Ning Fan did not pay any attention to these protectors. His eyes glowed with green light as he secretly activated the secret word force to study the situation of the seal on the third peak. At the same time, a rumbling sound came from the direction of the second peak. There was even a fiery light that soared into the sky. It was Miao Yan who was unsealing the Li Fire runes on the second peak. Ning Fan was not in a hurry to unseal the runes on the third peak. Instead, his eyes narrowed slightly. Under the puzzled gazes of Sang Chong and the others, he walked out of the Golden Palace and spread his spirit sense towards the direction of the second peak. There were a total of 6 million Li Fire runes sealed on the second peak. At this moment, there were runes constantly flying out of the second peak. Every time a rune flew out, the great momentum of heaven and earth would be disrupted, forming blades of great momentum that were hard to be seen by the naked eye and slashed down from the sky. There were a total of 16 old monsters who were protecting Miao Yan. 2 of them were thought-breaking realm cultivators. They were the commanders of Zichao's combat division, Teng Nan and Teng Bei. Among the 16 of them, some of them were constantly injured by the blades of great momentum. This was the danger of unsealing the Li Fire runes. If it wasn't for Miao Yan's profound cultivation base which allowed him to suppress the great momentum with all his might, with just the cultivation base of Teng Nan, Teng Bei and the others, they would probably be killed by the blades of great momentum. To others, these blades of great momentum are extremely dangerous. However, to me, Ning Fan turned around and returned to the Golden Palace. He stood in the middle of Sang Chong and the others again. After secretly activating the secret word force, he raised the command flag in his hand. Seeing that Ning Fan was finally going to unseal the runes, Sang Chong and the other old monsters became nervous. All of them raised their spirits. As soon as the command flag rose into the sky, it immediately gave off rays of fiery light, directly causing the entire third peak to shake. At first, the shaking was very light. However, it soon became more violent, producing loud rumbling sounds. There were even fire runes that flew out of the fire peak recklessly, disrupting the great momentum of heaven and earth in this place. Rays of bright white sword light that were a foot long continuously appeared in the sky above the third peak. As soon as they appeared, they immediately slashed at the direction of the Golden Palace. These bright white sword lights were the blades of great momentum. In just a breath's time, they slashed the entire Golden Palace into pieces. The people in the Golden Palace were immediately attacked by the blades of great momentum. 10, 100, 1,000. As the number of runes that were unsealed increased, the number of blades of great momentum that fell from the sky increased. At first, Sang Chong and the others could still resist the blades of great momentum without suffering any injuries. However, when the number of blades of great momentum had exceeded 3,000, their defense began to falter. Some of the old monsters let out muffled groans and sustained injuries. Even though Sang Chong had the cultivation base of the broken sense realm, he still could not avoid getting some injuries. Ning Fan performed hand seals with all 10 of his fingers and activated the power of the command flag to unseal the Li Fire runes continuously. He was also at the center of the attack of the blades of great momentum. However, there was not a single wound on his body. He was not harmed by the blades of great momentum that fell from the sky. In terms of real cultivation base, Ning Fan was not as good as Sang Chong or even any of the protectors here. However, in terms of controlling the power of great momentum, not to mention Sang Chong, even Lu He and Miao Yan, the two immortal venerables were not as good as Ning Fan, who had comprehended the secret of the word momentum. The current Ning Fan had already activated the secret of the word momentum to its maximum. He was clearly standing there without moving an inch. However, none of the blades of great momentum that were slashing at him would strangely deviate by an inch when they were about to reach him, avoiding his attacks. Sang Chong and the other 13 old monsters widened their eyes in disbelief when they saw what was happening. They could not understand how Ning Fan managed to avoid the attacks of the blades of great momentum. The abilities that were involved were too profound and they could not understand it. However, what puzzled them the most was the step that Ning Fan suddenly took. Ning Fan took a step forward. He did not use any abilities in that step, but it gave Sang Chong and the others an indescribable feeling of profoundness. It was as if he had stepped on the veins of the great Tao. Originally, the great momentum of this place was chaotic. However, after Ning Fan took a step forward, the chaotic great momentum actually calmed down bit by bit. 2 steps, 3 steps, 4 steps, Ning Fan slowly moved forward and took 9 steps. He used the secret of the word momentum in these 9 steps, causing the chaotic great momentum of this place to completely calm down. Ning Fan's mere 9 steps had suppressed the flow of the great momentum. The blades of great momentum directly collapsed in the vast sky. More and more flame runes rushed out of the third peak and integrated into the entire South Li Fire formation. However, no blades of great momentum appeared anymore. Senior Zhao's abilities are really shocking. He actually managed to suppress the great momentum. What kind of ability is this? Sang Chong and the others were astonished. When they looked at Ning Fan again, their eyes were filled with unprecedented fervor. Even a 6 combos immortal venerable could not do this. However, Ning Fan managed to do it. Could it be that Ning Fan was not only an immortal venerable of the past 10,000 years but also an immortal venerable whose cultivation base was higher than a 6 combos immortal venerable? This young man has only taken 9 steps, but he can actually suppress the great momentum. On the first peak, the 6 combos immortal venerable who had been paying attention to the third peak was shocked. His fear towards Ning Fan deepened. What he couldn't do was easily done by Ning Fan. On the second peak, Venerable Miao Yan, who had successfully unsealed the 6 million Li Fire runes, had her beautiful eyes filled with excitement. As soon as she unsealed all the runes on the second peak, she sensed the scene of Ning Fan suppressing the great momentum. She was both surprised and felt that it was only natural. After tens of breaths, the 1 million runes on the third peak were completely unsealed by Ning Fan. At this moment, 14 million runes had been integrated into the South Li Fire formation. Its power had greatly increased. After Ning Fan, Sang Chong and the others finished unsealing the runes, before they could even take a break, the earth-shattering roars of beasts suddenly resounded in the distant void outside the fire formation. In the distance, more than 8 million wild beasts gathered together and rushed towards the South Li Fire formation. Behind the 8 million wild beasts were 3 barbarian ancestors who were following them from afar. Each of them had concealed themselves. These 3 barbarian ancestors were the 4th ancestor, the 2nd ancestor and the 1st barbarian ancestor who had arrived late. First ancestor, oh first ancestor. Aren't you a little too slow? However, since you're already here, we can finally take action against that brat who has been affected by the barbarian summoning technique. The three of us can display the strength of an immortal venerable while there are only 2 immortal venerables in the human race. It's not difficult to take down that brat. The fourth ancestor sneered. However, before we capture him, we have to give him a big gift first. I'll let him devour these 8 million wild beasts. We'll make our move after these wild beasts are all dead. We need to be patient. Let's wait a little longer. The second ancestor smiled sinisterly and licked his lips. The first barbarian ancestor stood on his bone sword and calmly looked at the scene in front of him. His expression was cold and indifferent. Inwardly, he seemed to be very confident about capturing Ning Fan. His strength was the strongest among the 6 previous barbarian ancestors. Only the 7th barbarian ancestor, Fan Ma Kong, who had peerless innate talent, could be compared to him. When the 8 million wild beasts attacked, the human cultivators in the fire formation immediately exclaimed. They did not understand why 8 million wild beasts would attack them at all. They did not know that these wild beasts were attracted by the barbarian summoning technique in Ning Fan's body. The 6 Unity Immortal Venerable's eyes turned slightly cold. His expression was unprecedentedly solemn. He glanced at the direction of the 3rd peak and let out a sigh. Then, the coldness in his eyes disappeared. He deliberately made things difficult for Ning Fan and even wanted to chase him out of the fire formation. He was afraid that the barbarian summoning technique in Ning Fan's body would attract a large number of wild beasts to attack him. Unfortunately, he failed to chase Ning Fan away. Forget it. Since things have come to this, there's no point in talking anymore. This southerly fire formation is guarded by me, Miao Yen and Zhao Jian. Even if there are 8 million wild beasts, there's nothing to be afraid of. The 6 Unity Immortal Venerable's eyes turned serious. He flew away from the first peak and flew into the sky. Fellow Taoist Miao Yen, fellow Taoist Zhao, I'll have to trouble the 2 of you to attack together with me. We'll control the 3 peaks of the southerly fire formation and repel these wild beasts. As soon as he finished speaking, the 6 Unity Immortal Venerable raised the formation flag of the first peak and made a series of hand seals. Immediately, 7 million runes flashed across the entire southerly fire formation. They condensed into a heaven-engulfing fire palm and slapped at the wild beasts in the distance. The destructive power of that palm was not much weaker than the attack of an immortal venerable. In just a single strike, tens of thousands of wild beasts were killed at the center of the group. However, there were even more wild beasts whose eyes were filled with madness. They ignited their beast blood recklessly and directly crashed into the southerly fire formation. Yesterday's update was interrupted again. I'm sorry. I have to make up for it today no matter what. Chapter 9:12.1 After another, the wild beasts charged out and crashed into the southerly fire formation without any fear of death. There were also quite a number of savage beasts who ignited their beast blood. Xiao Qin directly self-detonated. The shockwave from the explosion struck the fire formation, creating sinister cracks. The 16 thought-shattering barbaric beasts gathered together and spat out brutal flash at the same time, bombarding the fire formation. Immediately, the entire fire formation began to shake violently, as if there was an earthquake. The earth trembled and the mountains shook. More and more cracks appeared on the south-parting fire formation. Seeing this, the 6 Combo's celestial supremacy put his hands together and shouted. South-parting 3 peaks, mountain soul. All of a sudden, the 3 peaks started to shake, and a shadow flew out from each peak. As soon as the 3 phantoms flew out, they immediately transformed into 3 vermilion bird phantoms, their bodies condensed from illusory flames. The 6 combination celestial venerate changed his hand seal, and 7 million fire talismans immediately flowed into the body of the first vermilion bird. The vermilion bird's eyes were originally empty, but after fusing with the fire talisman, they immediately became fierce. After absorbing the 7 million flame symbols, the vermilion bird's aura reached the peak of the thought-demolishing level. Under the control of the 6 combination celestial supremacy, the vermilion bird rushed out of the fire formation as if it did not have a physical body. Everywhere it passed, wild beasts were burned to ashes by the flames on the vermilion bird's body. One of the thought-shatterer beasts roared as it charged at the vermilion bird and self-detonated. The resulting shockwave caused the vermilion bird to explode into 7 million flame symbols. However, as the fire talisman condensed, the vermilion bird materialized once more. Rising from the ashes, it charged toward the group of savage beasts once more. Immediately, a large number of savage beasts cried out in agony and fell. Fellow Taoists, if you are as fast as me and fuse the fire talisman into the body of the vermilion bird's shadow, you will be able to achieve twice the result with half the effort. The 6 Unity Immortal Venerate said to Miao Yen and Ning Fan through telepathy. Venerate wise words and nodded and pointed at the vermilion bird phantom on the second peak. 6 million fire runes merged into the body of this vermilion bird. With a tap of her finger, the second vermilion bird flew out of the fire formation and began slaughtering the 8 million savage beasts. Ning Fan also activated his ability and fused the 1 million fire talismans into the body of the third vermilion bird. Then, he controlled the third vermilion bird to launch a counterattack against the group of beasts. The 3 vermilion birds were almost immortal. Even if they were killed by savage beasts, they could be reborn from the ashes. Under the combined attacks of these 3 vermilion birds, close to 1 million savage beasts had perished in just the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. First generation, second ancestor, and fourth ancestor coldly looked at the scene of the wild beast dying. They didn't feel the slightest bit of heartache. To them, the life of a savage beast was as insignificant as a feather, and it was not worth their attention at all. What they were concerned about was to what extent Ning Fan's barbarian marks would improve after the death of these savage beasts. Corpse ashes continued to fall from the sky. Every breath, countless savage beasts would lose their lives to the attacks of the 3 vermilion birds. Every time a savage beast died, its blood chi would be absorbed by the barbarian mark on the left side of his face. The barbarian marks on the left side of Ning Fan's face gradually covered the right side of his face. The number of barbarian marks kept increasing from 46, 47, 48, 49. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the number of barbarian marks on Ning Fan's body had reached 73. 92 marks, 93 marks, 94 marks. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, 2 million savage beasts had fallen. The number of barbarian marks on Ning Fan's body had reached 95 marks. When the number of barbarian marks reached 95, the black and red barbarian mark on the right side of Ning Fan's face formed a totem of 9 leaves. At the same time, the image of a 6-edged snowflake suddenly appeared at the center of the 9 leaves. At the same time, traces of barbarian blood were produced in Ning Fan's body. As soon as the barbarian blood was produced, it was immediately devoured by the domineering calamity blood. The grade of Ning Fan's calamity blood had already broken through the 7 stars remnant blood. Now, under the continuous strengthening, it rose all the way to the 8 stars remnant blood. The grade of the calamity blood is about to break through to the 8 stars remnant blood. Although the grade of his bloodline had clearly increased, Ning Fan's face did not show much joy. Instead, it was still as solemn as before. With the help of the barbarian summoning technique, Ning Fan knew that the enemies who came to attack the Southleaf Fire Formation were not only 8 million savage beasts but also 3 barbarian ancestors. If his senses were not wrong, the 3 barbarian ancestors were currently hiding behind a large group of savage beasts. However, they did not seem to be in a hurry to attack. Strange. It's not an easy task to break the Southleaf Fire Formation with just the strength of 8 million savage beasts. Even if they are lucky enough to break the formation, they will also suffer heavy losses. Why are these three barbarian ancestors hiding at the side and not helping the savage beasts to break the formation? Could it be that they don't care about the casualties of the savage beasts? The first barbarian ancestor's face was cold from the beginning to the end. He watched everything that was happening in front of him with cold eyes. The second and fourth ancestors, on the other hand, wore cold smiles on their faces. If they were not wrong, there were already 96 barbarian marks on Ning Fan's body. 96 barbarian marks. Hee. Good. Very good. I wonder if this young man can break through the barrier of 100 barbarian marks. 100 barbarian marks is a bottleneck, but it is also an opportunity for his barbarian marks to undergo a qualitative change. Only when he breaks through the barrier of 100 barbarian marks can he be considered a delicacy. 9 barbarian first trials. I wonder if this young man can survive this trial. The second and fourth ancestors' faces were filled with anticipation. The savage beasts continued to fall while the number of barbarian marks on Ning Fan's body continued to increase. After the barbarian marks covered the right side of his face, they began to spread to his entire body. 97, 98, 99. When the number of barbarian marks on his body broke through the barrier of 100, Ning Fan's expression suddenly changed. At this moment, the barbarian marks in his body suddenly began to devour its master. An unimaginable suction force was emitted from the barbarian marks. This time, the barbarian marks did not absorb spirit sense but vitality. The vitality in Ning Fan's body began to flow into the barbarian marks at a crazy rate. Although a cultivator's lifespan would be limitless after attaining the second step, if the vitality in his body dissipated, he would still grow old bit by bit and die. At this moment, Ning Fan was in such a state. His vitality was being devoured by the barbarian marks at a crazy rate. His entire body began to show signs of aging due to the loss of vitality. His palms began to wither and his appearance began to age. If it was not for the fact that he was currently covering his ghost face, others would definitely notice it. In just 10 breaths of time, Ning Fan's appearance changed from a young man to a haggard old man. How dare a mere barbarian mark devour its master? Ning Fan's eyes immediately turned cold. He activated the Calamity Blood Aura force in his body, trying to suppress the barbarian mark's backlash once again. Unfortunately, the Calamity Blood Aura force could not suppress the barbarian mark's backlash this time. The backlash this time was too special. It was completely different from the previous backlash. The backlash this time had a name. During the time when the barbaric ancestor was still alive, it was called the 9 Barbarian Tribulation by the barbarian cultivators. One of the reasons why the high-grade barbarian summoning technique was dangerous was that it would trigger 9 tribulations when the young barbarian priest was awakened. Every time a person's barbarian mark broke through 100 checkpoints, they would face a tribulations and their vitality would be devoured by the barbarian mark. This kind of devouring could not be stopped. Only by continuously replenishing their vitality could they survive the tribulations and continue to increase the number of barbarian marks. The reason why Ning Fan's vitality was being devoured was because he was facing the first tribulations of the young barbarian priest. Even though he had activated the Calamity Blood Aura force, he still could not suppress the barbarian mark's backlash. Ning Fan's eyes became even more solemn. He could not stop the barbarian mark from devouring his vitality. He must find a way to replenish his vitality. If the vitality in his body was exhausted, his body would grow old and die step by step. I have a way to replenish vitality. Let's see how much vitality your barbarian mark can devour. Ning Fan suddenly recalled the scene where the old man named Ni Fan devoured Xing's vitality to recover his strength. His expression changed. His body suddenly emitted a towering demonic chi. His white robes and silver hair turned into black robes and black hair at this moment. The black-robed Ning Fan had appeared. the current Ning Fan was no longer using magic power to control his body. Instead, he was using his demonic power to control his body. Currently, he could use the Fu Li clan's most powerful divine ability, Returning Ruin Finger. With this finger, he could devour the vitality of others and deprive their cultivation base. Countless cultivators were paying attention to the battlefield. They were paying attention to Lu He, Miao Yan and Ning Fan, who were defending the formation. When Ning Fan turned into black robes and released his demonic qi, many old monsters naturally saw this scene and exclaimed in surprise. Hiss! Senior Zhao Jian's qi has changed. It has actually turned into the qi of a demonic cultivator. What a strong and evil demonic qi! What kind of demonic qi is this? What kind of demonic qi is this? I didn't expect Senior Zhao Jian to be able to use the power of the demonic race as a human. Could it be that Senior Zhao has consumed the ancient returning fruit before? Could it be that a demon vein has been nurtured in his body? Even though these cultivators exclaimed in surprise, none of them doubted Ning Fan's identity as a human. They only knew that Ning Fan had consumed the ancient returning fruit, which was why he possessed the power of the demonic race. Lu He and Miao Yan were controlling the vermilion bird to kill the savage beasts. When they saw Ning Fan turn into black robes, they only gave him a glance but did not say anything. Among the crowd, only those cultivators who were riding on the Devil Essence boat revealed a surprised expression the moment Ning Fan turned into black robes. Mounzin old ancestor Jin Hua's expressions changed, especially old ancestor Jin Hua, who had been severely injured by Ning Fan's finger. He knew very well that Ning Fan would be extremely terrifying once he turns into black robes. Sha Gu. Ning Fan suddenly pointed a finger at the sky. That finger contained an indescribable mighty force. The name of this finger was Returning Ruin. This finger had the power to make people return to the returning ruin. It could also take away the vitality of others and devour their Tao attainments to restore themselves. In the void outside the fire formation, billowing black mist immediately appeared under the finger. The black mist spread across the entire battlefield. Any savage beasts that fell into the mist began to lose their vitality at a crazy rate. Their vitality was taken away by Ning Fan's returning ruin finger. Moreover, these savage beasts would lose 1,000 years of Tao attainments for every breath they took. After 10 breaths, a large number of savage beasts lost 10,000 years of Tao attainments and their cultivation bases were greatly damaged. 10 breaths was the limit of Ning Fan's returning ruin finger. However, 10 breaths was enough for him to obtain enough vitality for his barbaric mark to devour. After Ning Fan displayed this finger ability, 6 Unity Immortal Venerated was immediately shocked. Originally, he did not pay too much attention to the black-robed Ning Fan. However, at this moment, he was shocked by the black-robed Ning Fan's returning ruin finger. It was his first time seeing such a domineering ability that could actually wipe away the Tao attainments of others. The profoundness of this ability had already exceeded his understanding. Miao Yan's beautiful eyes were filled with brilliance. She could not see through the profoundness of Ning Fan's ability. In her mind, Ning Fan's image became even greater and more mysterious. The second ancestor and the fourth ancestor who had been hiding at the side all this while gasped. They sensed a trace of danger from the returning ruin finger. It was enough to threaten the blood soul inside the stone statue. Even the first barbarian ancestor let out a soft cry of surprise. His expression turned solemn and he muttered to himself. This young man doesn't seem to be as simple as we thought. With the vitality that was devoured by the returning ruin finger, the vitality in Ning Fan's body was replenished. His old and withered appearance regained its youthfulness. The barbaric marks on his body were still devouring the vitality in Ning Fan's body crazily, but they could no longer threaten his life. Gradually, the barbaric marks calmed down as if they had devoured enough vitality. This meant that Ning Fan had safely passed the first damage tribulation of the young barbarian god. After passing the damage tribulation, a large amount of barbaric blood appeared in Ning Fan's body again. After devouring the barbaric blood, the Jia blood's grade completely broke through to the 8-star remnant blood. 8-star remnant blood. Ning Fan's eyes sparkled. The number of barbaric marks on his body increased again. 101, 102, 103, 104, the number of savage beasts that had died here had already exceeded 5 million. The number of barbaric marks on Ning Fan's body had also reached 156. When the number of barbaric marks reached 156, Ning Fan's body produced more barbaric blood. After devouring the barbaric blood, the grade of Ning Fan's tribulation blood slowly approached the 9 stars tribulation blood. However, it had yet to break through to the 9 stars tribulation blood. There were only 3 million savage beasts left, but the 3 barbarian ancestors had yet to show themselves. Ning Fan's heart sank and he had a guess. Could it be that the 3 barbarian ancestors are waiting for all the savage beasts to die before they attack me? Could it be that they are purposely sending these savage beasts to their deaths? 157, 158, 159, 160, the number of savage beasts that had died here had already exceeded 7 million. The number of Ning Fan's barbaric marks had also increased to 199. The second and fourth ancestors' eyes were burning with excitement. They really wanted to know if Ning Fan could pass the second damage tribulation and obtain more than 200 barbaric marks. This young man knows the ability to extract vitality. Since he has passed the first damage tribulation, he should be able to pass the second damage tribulation. If he passes the second damage tribulation. Hee. That taste, Ning Fan was still wearing his black robes. He controlled his body with his demonic power. When the 200th barbaric mark appeared, he welcomed the second damage tribulation of the young barbarian priest. The barbaric marks in his body experienced a backlash once again. This time, the backlash was much stronger than the first time. Ning Fan suddenly stretched out his finger and displayed the returning ruined finger again. He used the vitality of the savage beasts outside the formation to replenish his own vitality. Just like that, Ning Fan passed the second damage tribulation without any danger. His body produced a large amount of barbaric blood again. Devour, 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 the Jia blood devoured the barbaric blood crazily. Its grade slowly broke through the bottleneck of the 8 stars realm and reached the 9 stars remnant blood realm. If it advances to the 9 stars remnant blood realm, the next realm would be the 1-star true blood realm. The 9 stars remnant blood realm Tai Tsung Jia Ling was already comparable to ordinary Shikong Jia, while the 1-star true blood realm Tai Tsung Jia Ling was invincible against those below the Shikong Jia Ling. The difference in strength between the two of them was huge. Thus, it was extremely difficult to break through from the 9 stars remnant blood realm to the 1-star true blood realm. The number of savage beasts outside the formation gradually decreased. Gradually, there were only a few thought-shattering barbaric beasts that were still alive. The rest of them had already been killed by the 3 vermilion birds. The Southly Fire formation had already been destroyed by the attacks of the 8 million savage beasts. The remaining thought-shattering barbaric beasts suddenly self-destructed at the same time. The power of their self-destruction directly shattered the Southly Fire formation, which had exhausted its power. At this moment, all 8 million savage beasts were dead. At this moment, the number of barbaric marks on Ning Fan's body had reached 224. The 3 fiery mountains cracked one after another with a loud bang. The 3 vermilion birds' bodies dissipated and disappeared in the void space. The 3 formation flags also disappeared at the same time. They turned into a flame drawing which had lost a great deal of spirituality and fell into the hands of the 6 Unity Immortal Venerate. The Southly Fire formation was destroyed and the power of the Southly Fire drawing was greatly reduced. Seeing this scene, the 6 Unity Immortal Venerate's face turned terrifyingly cold. However, he did not say anything. Even though the power of the Southly Fire drawing was greatly reduced, it was still a great achievement to kill 8 million savage beasts in one go. Without the help of these savage beasts, the balance between the human race and the demon race was no longer tilted in the demon race's favor. Continuously controlling the grand formation to kill the enemies consumed a lot of his energy. Before the 6 Unity Immortal Venerate had the time to rest, his eyes suddenly widened. At this moment, all the human cultivators and barbarians held their breaths. Their expressions were filled with nervousness. At this moment, the continent where the human cultivators were located had completely lost the protection of the South Leaf Fire Formation. However, in the distant void space, several escaping lights with ferocious chi could be sensed. They came with ill intentions. They were the first ancestor, the second ancestor and the fourth ancestor. The 3 barbarian ancestors had come for Ning Fan. At the moment when the 3 barbarian ancestors appeared, Ning Fan's eyes flashed with cold light. He. 224 barbarian marks. What a great supplement. If we devour this brat. The first ancestor's eyes were filled with killing intent while the second ancestor and the fourth ancestor were sneering. The killing intent of the 3 of them swept towards the human continent in an overwhelming manner. The 6 Unity Immortal Venerate's eyes became even more solemn. None of the 3 barbarian ancestors in front of him had a cultivation base that was not weaker than his. The aura of the first ancestor, especially, gave him an extremely dangerous feeling. Wise Words Immortal Venerate secretly activated his star technique, getting ready to attack at any time. Immortal Loli's small face was already grim. She was ready to fight. A great battle was about to break out. However, the 3 barbarian ancestors seemed to have received a voice transmission all of a sudden. Their expressions changed drastically. That voice transmission was sent to them by the 7th ancestor. The moment the 3 of them received the voice transmission, they no longer had the intention to deal with Ning Fan. They chose a direction and directly left. They no longer had the time to deal with Ning Fan. There were more important things waiting for them to do. Damn it. Why did the first level of the 9 Heavens Imperial Court appear in advance? There's no time to catch that junior. Let's go to the first level of the 9 Heavens Imperial Court first. There's no hurry to devour the barbarian marks in that junior's body. The second ancestor and the fourth ancestor grumbled inwardly. The human cultivators were secretly wondering why the 3 experts who were comparable to immortal venerates left after coming here. Seeing that the 3 barbarian ancestors had left, no one would naturally chase after them. Strange. Why did the 3 barbarian ancestors suddenly leave? While Ning Fan was pondering, the sky of this place suddenly rumbled. It was not just the sky of this place, but the sky of all the gates of life and gates of death in the entire wild desolate was rumbling. The shadow of a majestic palace gate slowly appeared in the sky. There was a horizontal board on top of the palace gate. There were only 3 ancient words written in the ancient immortal language on it. These words were a type of language that had been passed down from ancient times. Very few cultivators could recognize them. There were only a dozen or so people who could recognize these words. Ning Fan, however, could also recognize these words. He muttered the 3 ancient immortal language on the horizontal board of the palace gate. First heavenly layer. He did not know what these 3 words meant. There were also very few people who knew what these 3 words meant. Only Lu He and Wise Words Immortal who came from the East sect and had been guarding the wild desolate for many years knew the true meaning of the first heavenly layer. The first heavenly layer referred to the first level of the 9 Heavens Imperial Court. As for the 9 Heavens Imperial Court, it was another name for the ancient passage of the wild desolate. The power of the Heaven Sealing Immortal Edict has yet to run out, but the ancient passage has appeared in advance. How could this be? Both Lu He and Wise Words were shocked. Among the hundreds of immortal emperors of the human race and demon race in the passage, many of their expressions changed drastically. Today is only the 5th day since the collapse of the wild desolate. It hasn't even reached the 7th day. Why did the ancient passage appear in advance? Chapter 9:13. Many of the great emperors on the passageway sensed the changes in the desolate land. No one knew exactly what had gone wrong, causing the ancient era's passage to appear ahead of time. The true dragon tribe leader's expression was unsettled. He looked towards the ancient emperor of Tongtian, only to meet the ancient emperor of Tongtian's gaze. The moment their gazes met, they saw the confusion in each other's eyes. Isn't this the doing of the human race? Could it be an accident that the ancient passage appeared in advance? True Dragon Clan leader and Tong Tian ancient emperor pondered. After a moment of silence, the True Dragon Clan leader took out a golden bowl and held it up. The moment the golden bowl rose into the air, it expanded with the wind and let out a chilling dragon roar. Then, it fell from the sky and sucked all the monster race grand emperors into the bowl world. The human race immortal emperors were separated by the golden bowl, so they couldn't see what the demon race immortal emperors were doing. After doing all this, the True Dragon Clan leader ordered the monarchs behind him. Where is the demon wolf? I'm here. A female empress in palace attire with a veil over her face slowly walked out from the group of demon emperors. Take off your veil and cast the demon art of disguise. Use your skin to project a corner of the 9 heavens imperial court. There must be no mistakes. Yes. The empress of the demon race, Lei Yao, was only at the eternal 6th tribulation, and she didn't have a true spirit clan background. He did not dare to disobey the orders of the head of the True Dragon Clan. Right now, the desolate was sealed by the Heaven Sealing Immortal Edict. If the power of the Heaven Sealing Immortal Edict was not depleted, no one would be able to enter the desolate. Fortunately, the demon race had Empress Ho Yao, who possessed incredible abilities. Even with the Heaven Bestowal Immortal's Edict in place, she was able to scout out the situation in the wildlands. This woman obeyed the orders of the True Dragon Clan leader and took off her veil, revealing a peerlessly beautiful face. If a man with insufficient willpower saw this face, he would fall into a trance. But then, she tore off the beautiful skin, revealing the bloody and ugly true face underneath. Demon Yen tossed up the skin that he had torn off, and the skin immediately spread out like a canvas. She formed a seal with her white hand and wrote something on the surface of the painting. Not long after, there seemed to be light and shadow flowing on the surface of the painting, faintly reflecting something, but it couldn't be seen too clearly. The projection isn't clear. Is it because of the interference from the Heaven Sealing Immortal Edict? In the end, it's because this girl's cultivation base is slightly lower. After pondering for a moment, the True Dragon Clan leader took out a bottle of dragon tooth pills and handed it to the demon, saying, "Consume this pill. Within 3 days, you will be able to stimulate your potential and raise your demon power cultivation by 1 small realm." Demon Chi took the pill and swallowed it in one go. After consuming the pill, her bloodied appearance became even uglier, but her aura increased in a short period of time. She was no weaker than an immortal emperor with 7 tribulations. This pill was extremely precious and there were only a few of them in the entire True Dragon Clan. Yet, it was given to the demon. Demon Chi activated her divine ability again. This time, the projection on the face was slightly clearer. One could vaguely see the void of the desolate land from the projection, as well as a towering palace in the void. That palace wasn't an illusion, but a real existence. Every brick and tile was an ancient object, as if it had directly descended from the endless void to the desolate land. The aura of the palace was heavy in vicissitude, causing any demon sovereign who saw it to have the urge to kneel down and worship it. That palace was the ancient passageway of the desolate ancient region, 9 heavens imperial court. Vaguely, the demon sovereigns of the demon race saw the scene of 4 two-headed cultivators stepping into the palace. Because the projection was too blurry, they couldn't see the appearance of the 4 two-headed cultivators clearly. However, just the sight of the two-headed cultivators had already caused many demon sovereigns to frown. Two-headed Could these 4 people be the barbarian ancestors in the history of the desolate land? The demon race had been plotting against the desolate land for a long time and had interacted with the barbarian ancestors before. Therefore, they could vaguely recognize the 4 of them as the barbarian ancestors. As for which barbarian ancestors they were, they couldn't tell. After all, the projection was too blurry and they couldn't see them clearly. The true dragon clan leader looked at the projection on the painted skin, frowned and gradually fell silent. While the true dragon clan leader was trying to project the projection into the desolate land, the ancient heaven-reaching sovereign wasn't idle either. He took out an ancient painting and opened it, bringing all the demon sovereigns into the painting world. After pondering for a moment, he said to the tablet-wielding immortal emperor, Meng Xuanzi. Fellow Taoist Meng Xuanzi, your Tao sovereign is a tablet that can list everything in the world and rank them. I want you to create a tablet. What tablet? Meng Xuanzi walked out of the formation and asked. A tablet that can peer into the 9 heavens imperial court. This is a little difficult. Even if I can create a tablet with the heaven bestowment immortal edict in between, I'm afraid it won't be of much use. Forget it, I'll try my best. Meng Xuanzi patted the top of his head and a golden primordial spirit immediately flew out from the top of his head. The primordial spirit chanted and suddenly pointed forward. There was no one in front of it. Suddenly, a loud bang was heard and a giant bluestone tablet descended from the sky. There were originally no words on the giant tablet, but as Meng Xuanzi's divine ability changed, rows of names gradually appeared. First-generation barbarian ancestor, Fan Sanggu, has entered the first level of the 9 heavens imperial court, 11th palace. Second-generation barbarian ancestor, Fan Zong, has entered the first level of the 9 heavens imperial court, 9th palace. Fourth-generation barbarian ancestor, Fan Shoufei, has entered the first level of the 9 heavens imperial court, 7th palace. 7th-generation barbarian ancestor, Fan Makong, has entered. Specific location cannot be displayed, there were only 4 names on the bluestone tablet. This meant that at this moment, there were only 4 people who had entered the 9 heavens imperial court. The locations of 3 of the 4 barbarian ancestors who had entered the 9 heavens imperial court could be seen clearly, but the location of the 7th ancestor could not be displayed. Why can't the 7th barbarian ancestor's location be displayed? The ancient the Arch of Heaven frowned slightly and asked. There's a limit to what I can sense when the heaven bestowment immortal edict is cast. Once the target is wearing a concealment item, I won't be able to see too much. The 7th barbarian ancestor must have a concealment treasure on him. Moreover, this concealment treasure doesn't conceal his appearance or identity, but only his whereabouts. Meng Xuanzi answered. I see. The ancient the Arch of Heaven stood in front of the giant tablet with his hands behind his back. He did not speak anymore, and no one knew what he was thinking about, in the base of the demon race in the wilderness. Ao Xian and old ancestor Poisonous Dragon walked out of the palace together. They looked at the illusionary palace in the sky with surprise and joy on their faces. According to the original plan of the demon race, the 2 of them had to find one of the ancient statues of the barbarian ancestor. After the power of the heaven bestowment immortal edict dissipated, they had to make the ancient statue revolve 3 times before they could awaken the ancient passage. Now, it was not the last day of the collapse of the wilderness yet, and they had not found any of the ancient statues. However, the ancient passage had appeared. I've been unable to find the ancient statue of the barbarian ancestor for a long time, and I thought that I wouldn't be able to awaken the ancient passage. I didn't expect it to appear on its own. Although this matter is a little strange, it is a good thing. If that's the case, there's a high chance that we'll be able to complete the mission that the clan leader gave us. Ao Xian and Patriarch Poisonous Dragon looked excited. They directly abandoned the monster race and monster cultivators in the base and sped off in a direction. What appeared in the sky was merely a mirage of the 9 heavens imperial court, and not the real 9 heavens imperial court. The 9 heavens imperial court was not here, but somewhere else. At this moment, the two of them were in a hurry to rush to the true location of the Nine Heavens Imperial Court, just to enter it and complete the mission given by the clan leader. Compared to this matter, everything else seemed insignificant. In addition to Ao Xian and Patriarch Poisonous Dragon, there were 13 other monsters. 20 thought-fragmenting cultivators and 45 shedding space cultivators followed the two of them and left the demon clan's encampment, rushing towards the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. The ruins of the South Parting Fire Formation, the human encampment. The six combination Immortal Venerate and the wonderful words Immortal Venerate looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. The ancient era's passage had actually appeared. This matter had truly exceeded their expectations. Humph. No wonder the three immortal venerables who came to attack us left directly without fighting us. They must have gone to search for the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. Since the Nine Heavens Imperial Court has appeared in advance, I must go and find out immediately. The cultivators of my puppet sect have been plotting for this ancient era's passage for many years. It's best if I can seize the authority to control this passage. Even if I can't let the monster race gain the upper hand. As soon as he finished speaking, the six Unity Immortal Venerables sent a few telepathic messages to some of the human cultivators. Then, he brought 11 thought-fragmenting cultivators and 37 shedding space cultivators with him and left in a certain direction. Venerables Miao Yen did not leave with the six Unity Immortal Venerables. Instead, he stayed behind for the time being and said to Ning Fan with a solemn expression. "Fellow Daoist Zhao, do you want to go to the Nine Heavens Imperial Court with me?" The Nine Heavens Imperial Court. Does it refer to the illusory shadow of this palace? What kind of place is the Nine Heavens Imperial Court? Ning Fan looked at the illusory shadow of the palace in the sky and his eyes became increasingly solemn. Venerables Miao Yen did not give any explanation. Instead, he took out a jade slip and passed it to Ning Fan. Then, he said slowly, "The information regarding the Nine Heavens Imperial Court is one of the greatest secrets of my Four Unity sect. It can't be divulged to outsiders. However, the current situation is rather special. Fellow Daoist Zhao, please take a look at this information." Ning Fan received the jade slip and probed it with his spirit sense. After 10 breaths or so, he returned the jade slip to Venerables Miao Yen. His expression did not change much but his heart was filled with astonishment. Only now did he know that the hidden ancient era's passage in the ancient savage domain was called the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. It was exactly what the illusory shadow in the sky was referring to. The demon race and the human race had been fighting in the ancient savage domain for many years. What they were after was the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. The Nine Heavens Imperial Court had a total of 9 floors. Each floor had 111 palaces. Only by passing through the 111 palaces on the first floor could one enter the second floor. As long as one passes through all the palaces, one would be able to reach the highest point of the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. There was a sealed stone door there. It was the entrance to the ancient savage domain. One would need a corresponding key to open the door in order to enter. It was said that the key to the entrance of the savage ancient region was kept by ancestor dragon Zhu Li. Now, the key was still in the hands of the true dragon clan. The true dragon clan had the key to the entrance of this place. Therefore, they had always hoped to gain control of the entrance. Once they achieved their goal, the true dragon clan would be able to open the stone door with the key and enter the legendary ancient realm of Heaven Desolation. 1 billion years ago, the 4 heavens and 9 realms, the demon spirit land, and the ancient demon's abyss belonged to the same realm, the illusion realm. At that time, the illusionary world was a complete realm. At that time, the cultivators of the illusionary world were under the jurisdiction of the Zi-Do immortal domain. At that time, the cultivators of the illusionary world could directly go to the Zi-Do immortal domain without any obstacles. However, Immortal Lord Zi-Do suddenly used a divine ability to block a mysterious realm between the illusionary world and the Zi-Do immortal realm. It was called the Heavenly Desolate Ancient Realm. The existence of the desolate heaven ancient realm had completely cut off the path between the illusory world and the Z-Do immortal domain. There were only 9 ancient passageways and 9 ancient realm keys left in the illusory world. Only by opening the corresponding entrance with the corresponding key could one enter the ancient desolate heaven realm. Only by walking out of the ancient desolate heaven realm would one be able to reach the Z-Do immortal domain. The 9 ancient realm keys were once held by ancient Chaos, Zhu Li, and 9 other experts. As time passed, many of the keys had gone missing. Currently, there were only 3 keys that had been found by people in the world. The 9 ancient passageways were hidden between heaven and earth. There were only 6 ancient passageways that had been found. Among the 6 passageways, 4 of them had been destroyed. Only 2 of them could still be used. The 2 passageways of the 3 keys did not correspond to each other. Therefore, it was impossible to open the entrance to the ancient desolate heaven realm. The reason why the true dragon clan wanted to obtain the entrance to the desolate heaven realm was because they knew that the entrance corresponded to the key that they possessed. Therefore, once they obtained the entrance, the cultivators of the true dragon clan would have a high chance of opening the entrance to enter the ancient desolate heaven realm and head to the Z-Do immortal domain. In order to achieve this goal, the true dragon clan was willing to pay any price. Similarly, the human clan also wanted to obtain the entrance. However, they hoped that after obtaining the entrance, they would have an equal bargaining chip with the demon clan. You have the key and I have the entrance. In this way, we can sit down and talk about entering the ancient desolate heaven realm together. In order to achieve this goal, the human clan had been planning for the entrance to the desolate heaven realm for many years. The representative force of the human clan was the 4 Miao sect. This chapter is slightly short. I'm too tired. Please forgive me. Chapter 9:14. The 4 Majestic sect had been plotting against the desolate ancient passage for a long time. The true dragon tribe wanted to perform a blood sacrifice in the wildlands to awaken the ancient passageway. This matter would more or less leak out, and the 4 Meridians sect was not completely unaware of it. The immortal emperors of the 4C sect had tacitly agreed to the true dragon clan's plan because they also wanted to awaken the ancient passageway. The heavenly bestowal edict left behind by the 4 Fish sect in the wildlands was proof of this. It would not stop the demonic beast's plan. It would only delay the demonic beast's plan by 7 days, so that the 4 Meridian sect would have enough time to react and fight for the ancient passageway. Whether it was the demon race or the human race, in their eyes, the lives of barbarians were just like grass. If they could awaken the ancient passage, what harm was there in sacrificing the blood of the barbarians? Now that the 9 Heavens Imperial Court had finally appeared, as an immortal reverend of the 4 Demon sect, Reverend Wise Words had the obligation to investigate like a 6 combos immortal reverend. If possible, she would try to seize control of the entrance of the 9 Heavens Imperial Court. At the very least, she had to stop the demon race from seizing the entrance before the power of the heaven-sealing immortal imperial decree was exhausted. This was her responsibility as an immortal venerable of the 4 Minds sect. I want to go to the 9 Heavens Imperial Court to investigate. Fellow Taoist Zhao, do you want to go with me? Putting aside the identity of the ancient passage, there should be many opportunities in the 9 Heavens Imperial Court. Fellow Taoist, don't you want to go and take a look? Venerable Wise Words asked expectantly. This. I won't go to the 9 Heavens Imperial Court to join in the fun. Ning Fan pondered for a moment and shook his head, rejecting venerated Miao Yan's suggestion. Does fellow Zhao want to stay here and protect the barbarians here? Venerable Wisdom Words revealed a thoughtful expression as she looked in the direction of Heaven Barbarian City. Yes. Ning Fan answered. If he headed for the 9 Heavens Imperial Court, he would have to abandon Fairy Lowly, Zhao Dai, and the others. Now that the wildlands was filled with unfathomable dangers, who knew what sort of dangers would appear if he left? No one could guarantee that. Venerable Wise Words went to the Nine Heavens Imperial Court to investigate in order to fulfill his responsibility as an venerable immortal of the Gong sect. However, he did not have any responsibility to go to the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. He wanted to stay here and protect immortal Loli, Zhao Dai, and the others. Moreover, up until today, he had already figured out many things. Judging from how the demon race and the human race schemed against the ancient passage, the series of unforeseen events that had occurred in the wilderness was probably beyond the demon race and the human race's expectations, but it was also within their control. The appearance of the ancient passage would definitely attract countless experts from the two clans to fight over it. Getting involved in matters related to the ancient passage might cause trouble. The collapse of the wildlands would only last for 7 days. After 7 days, the power of the heaven-sealing immortal edict would be exhausted. At that time, there would probably be a large number of experts from the demon race and human race who would enter the desolate land to fight for the ancient passage. Ning Fan was not a meddlesome person. He did not have the obligation to go to the ancient passage, nor did he crave for the opportunities within it. Compared to those fortuitous opportunities, he was more willing to stay here and protect Xian Loli, Zhao Dai, and the others. Since fellow Daoist Zhao is unwilling to head to the Nine Heavens Imperial Court, I won't force you. It's good to have fellow Daoist here. Seeing that Ning Fan was unwilling to go with them, venerated Miao Yen felt a little regretful. However, he did not say anything and just stared at Ning Fan deeply. She felt like she only knew Ning Fan at this moment. He was a strange cultivator who cared about the lives and deaths of barbarians. Somehow, venerated Miao Yen did not feel repulsed by Ning Fan's behavior. With light steps, she finally turned into a ray of light and flew away from this place. Looking at venerated Miao Yan's departing figure, Ning Fan shook his head and returned to the heavenly barbarian city, which was not far away from the third peak. Before the 6 venerated immortals left, they brought Ting Nan, Ting Bei, Sang Chong and a large number of experts of the Four Meridians sect with them. Now that venerated Miao Yen had left, there were not many remnant thoughts and void residences left on the human continent. Many cultivators were filled with fear. They were afraid that there would be no one left to guard this place after Ning Fan left. Fortunately, Ning Fan did not leave but chose to stay. Isn't this senior Zhao planning to leave with the 2 venerated immortals Lu He and Miao Yen? Speaking of which, what is this illusory palace? I have no idea. However, I have a feeling that there might be a great opportunity inside. Mounz, old ancestor Jin Hua and the rest of the remnant thoughts did not belong to the Four Meridians sect. Thus, they were not taken away by venerated 6 meridians. These few old monsters of the remnant thoughts communicated with each other through telepathy, discussing something in secret. After a while, they also flew away from the human continent, following the route that Lu He and the others took to search for the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. They wanted to join in the fun and search for a great opportunity. Ning Fan did not stop Mounz and the others from leaving. Their legs belonged to them. It was their business to go wherever they wanted to go. After Mounz and the others left, a few more void residences also left. After that, no one else left. Uncle, so many people have left. Aren't you going to go with them and have a look? In the heavenly barbarian city, Zhao Dai asked with a clear and melodious voice. I'm not going anywhere, Ning Fan smiled faintly. Just like what he did many years ago, he gently patted her head. There were no plum blossoms in this place. However, when he bent his palm and waved it, a red plum blossom appeared out of thin air and pinned it on Zhao Dai's temple. Zhao Dai's cheeks blushed slightly. Her fair skin was covered with a faint pink. Suddenly, her heart was filled with feelings. However, Ning Fan's emotionless voice resounded in her ears. For a moment, she did not dare to have any feelings towards Ning Fan as she was afraid that it would tarnish the beauty of this moment. Don't be afraid. Uncle will stay here and protect Dai. In another 2 days, the calamity of the desolate world will probably be over. At that time, no matter how hard the human race and the demon race fight against each other, it will have nothing to do with you, me, and the barbarians. 2 days. In another 2 days, the calamity of the desolate world would probably be over, be it the immortal lowly, Zhao Dai, or the barbarians whom he had saved and had a predestined relationship with. During this period of time, he would protect these people properly. Unknowingly, when he had this belief, he suddenly had a strange feeling. At this moment, Ning Fan clearly felt that the relationship between him and the 224 barbarian marks had become even more intimate. Yes, this is the feeling. In the past, the barbarian marks would occasionally bite back at its master. However, at this moment, the barbarian marks seemed to have been tamed and no longer had the intention to bite back. All of this seemed to be because Ning Fan had the thought of protecting the barbarians. This barbarian mark, Ning Fan examined his body and muttered to himself for a long time. No one knew what he was thinking. After an unknown period of time, Ning Fan's figure flashed and appeared on the peak of the third peak. He unsealed the yin and yang of rain and displayed the heaven-peering rain technique. The Southly Fire formation was broken and the Southly Fire diagram was beaten back to its original form. Currently, the 3 fire peaks no longer had any power and were filled with lifeless qi. Ning Fan stood on the peak of the dead silent third peak. As soon as he displayed his technique, a light drizzle that was as smooth as cheese immediately fell from the third peak. The rain drifted along the way and gradually dispersed. It sprinkled on the second peak, the first peak and every corner of the Gate of Life. Then, it spread all the way to the other worlds. His rain spread further and further. Eventually, it covered the entire desolate world. He saw some humans and demons flying at high speed from time to time. However, not a single wild beast could be seen in the desolate world now. He saw a base camp of the demon race at a certain Gate of Life in the distance. There were more than 3 million demon cultivators there, but old ancestor Poisonous Dragon and venerated immortal Ao Xian were not there. He saw a majestic palace gate floating in the void somewhere extremely far away. It was different from the shadow of the palace gate in the sky above his head. The palace gate there was real, while the shadow here was just a projection caused by the appearance of the palace gate. That palace gate was the entrance to the first heaven of the 9 heavens imperial court. As time passed, Ning Fan saw old ancestor Poisonous Dragon and venerated immortal Ao Xian leading a large group of old monsters of the demon race into the 9 heavens imperial court. Gradually, Ning Fan saw 6 Unity Immortal venerated Miao Yen and the others entering the 9 heavens imperial court one after another. He just watched everything silently as if it had nothing to do with him. It was as if all the opportunities in the 9 heavens imperial court were not enough to tempt him. It was as if the ancient passage that caused the human race and demon race to go to war was just a meaningless swamp to him. The 5th day passed and the 6th day arrived. The 6th day passed and the 7th day arrived. It was already the last day of the blood sacrifice ceremony in the wild world. Ning Fan still stayed at this place without any intention of leaving. He was waiting for the 7th day to pass and for the power of the heaven-sealing immortal edict to be completely exhausted. He was waiting for the catastrophe that engulfed the wild world to pass the last day peacefully. However, on the last day of the blood sacrifice ceremony in the wild world, there was a sudden change in the sky above the third peak. An ancient voice resounded. This voice appeared out of nowhere. It resounded at midnight on the 7th day when the yin qi was the densest. Soul, come back. Soul, come back. This voice sounded like a call or a summon. It appeared out of nowhere. However, Ning Fan could immediately tell that the voice came from the direction of the 9 heavens imperial court. Moreover, there was a trace of barbaric ancestors' qi in this voice. It made Ning Fan immediately realize that the voice came from a certain barbaric ancestor. Ordinary people would not be able to hear this voice. Only those who possessed barbaric blood could hear it. It was the voice of a barbaric ancestor. It came from the bloodline of a barbaric ancestor. Even though the barbaric blood that Ning Fan cultivated was completely devoured by the calamity blood, he still retained part of the abilities of the barbaric blood. That was why he could hear this voice. The immortal Loli could not hear this voice. Lu Yen could not hear it. Even immortal concubine Zhang Yu, who was an ancient great emperor, could not hear it. However, Zhao Dai heard it. All the barbarians behind her heard it. The moment the voice fell, every barbarian who heard it felt as if their souls were being torn apart. They screamed and fell to the ground. The souls of these barbarians flew away from their bodies with blank eyes. Then, they turned into rays of illusory light and disappeared from where they stood. No one knew where they went. Ning Fan's soul had already fused with his primordial spirit. Even though he could feel the pain, it naturally would not break free from his primordial spirit and fly away from his body. However, those barbarians who were saved by Ning Fan and those who worshipped Ning Fan sincerely fell to the ground one after another. They had lost their souls. Even Zhao Dai's vision darkened. She almost fainted because her soul had left her body. Ning Fan hurriedly came to her rescue. He placed a finger on her glabella and sealed her soul from leaving her body. He had saved Zhao Dai, her. However, he did not manage to save the 1 million barbarians behind him in time. Soul, return. Ning Fan's eyes turned cold. He had transformed into a mortal in the wild wilderness for many years. He had read many ancient books and he knew what these 4 simple words meant. These 4 words were the incantation of the soul summoning technique, the 7th barbarian ancestor, Fan Ma Kong. The one who used the soul summoning technique to absorb the souls of the 1 million barbarians was most likely the 7th barbarian ancestor, Fan Ma Kong. It was already the last day of the blood sacrifice in the wild wilderness. As long as they could survive today, the 1 million barbarians would be able to survive. All the barbarians in the wild wilderness had died. Only these 1 million barbarians remained. They were the last bloodline of the barbarians. However, those barbarian ancestors still refused to let these barbarians go. They still used the evil barbarian technique to absorb the souls of these barbarians. Uncle. What happened this time? Why did everyone faint on the ground? Why? Zhao Dai's face turned pale. She struggled out of Ning Fan's embrace and looked at the barbarians who had fallen to the ground on the long street of the heavenly barbarian city. There was no chi. All the barbarians had lost their chi. Are they dead? Are the last barbarians of the barbarian race all dead? The bad premonition in her heart grew stronger and stronger. 2 streams of tears flowed down from the corner of her eyes. She did not understand. She could not understand, why did the heavens treat the barbarians like this? Why must the barbarians be exterminated? What did the barbarians do wrong? Who was it? Who attacked the barbarians again? Don't cry. These barbarians just fainted temporarily. They will wake up again. Uncle, I promise. Come, wipe your tears. Ning Fan did not tell Zhao Dai the truth about the 7th ancestor using the soul summoning technique. He just gently patted her hair as usual and said to the immortal Loli beside him. Xian, you stay here and protect them. Daddy is going out to handle some matters. He will be back soon. Oh. I know. Be careful when Daddy goes out. The immortal Loli answered obediently. Ning Fan gently turned around and stomped on the ground with the tip of his foot. He turned into a ray of golden light and flew towards the 9 heavens imperial court. His expression was originally gentle, but the moment he turned around, no one noticed that his eyes were filled with killing intent that was as cold as a storm. Barbarian ancestor, barbarian ancestor. It's the barbarian ancestor again. The soul summoning technique was one of the abilities that the 7th ancestor was most proficient in. It could draw the barbarian's soul from thousands of miles away and use it as a sacrifice to cast a technique. If the soul could be retrieved before it was destroyed and put back into the body, the barbarian whose soul was extracted would not die. If it was too late and the soul was destroyed, the millions of barbarians here would die. Ning Fan was never a kind person, but it did not mean that he had no principles. On the contrary, he was a person who valued his principles very much. There was no reason for the people that he saved to be killed a second time. He must save the souls of these barbarians. Currently, almost all the experts in the entire barbarian desolate have gone to the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. Xian is guarding outside. Nothing will happen. I didn't plan to go to the Nine Heavens Imperial Court at first, but the seventh ancestor is in the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. He extracted the souls of these barbarians there. If that's the case, I have to go to the Nine Heavens Imperial Court no matter what. The seventh ancestor, right? Ning Fan's eyes flickered with cold light. He turned into a ray of golden light and passed through the worlds of the gates of life at a terrifying speed. His silver hair danced wildly in the void. Along the way, Ning Fan kept devouring large amounts of spiritual items of the five elements. With the power of the great five elements physique, he directly refined them and turned them into an endless source of magical power. With his current speed, he arrived at the Nine Heavens Imperial Court in less than 100 breaths. What came into his sight was a towering palace gate that could reach the heavens. Outside the gate, there was a long white jade staircase that was 3,300 steps high. On the palace gate, there were 3 ancient immortal characters written on it. The vermilion ink was as red as blood. The long white jade staircase was enshrouded with white mist. The mist was dense like the mist in the immortal realm. It carried an extremely strong power that forbade space. When this power was added to the body, it gave people a heavy feeling as if they were carrying a huge mountain. Any cultivator who came to this place would lose their ability to fly and land on the long staircase. They could only climb up on foot. When Ning Fan arrived, there were 3 early shedding void demon cultivators climbing up the long white jade staircase with great difficulty. The 3 shedding void demon cultivators were sweating profusely, as if it was extremely strenuous for them to climb the long white jade staircase. The reason why it was strenuous was because any cultivator who stepped into the long realm would feel a heavy pressure on their body. The pressure on the long white jade staircase was enough to make early crossing truth realm cultivators unable to move an inch. If they were suppressed by the power of the forbidden immortal realm, even early shedding void demon cultivators would not be able to bear the pressure. Among the 3 of them, the one with a profound cultivation base had already climbed more than 1,000 steps. He was meditating on the spot to recover his demon power. It had already taken him a day to climb to this height. As for the other early shedding void demon cultivators, they had only climbed 700 to 800 steps after spending a day. It seems like early shedding void demon cultivators who are suppressed by the power of the forbidden immortal realm won't be able to climb this white jade staircase and enter the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. No wonder Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon and Old Ancestor Ao Xian only brought mid-shedding void demon cultivators and above to this place. The 3 of us who are early shedding void demon cultivators have come here without permission. It seems like our trip is going to be in vain. We can't even climb the staircase outside the palace gate. Forget it. The 3 of us should take a rest here and return to our clan's encampment. There's no need to try to enter this place anymore. Even if there's a fortune in this place, it won't be our turn. The 3 demon cultivators were panting heavily. After communicating with each other via telepathy, all of them had the intention to leave. However, before they could leave, a ray of golden light had already pierced through the sky and Ning Fan's silver-haired ghost-faced figure appeared. As soon as Ning Fan arrived, his body was immediately suppressed by the power of the forbidden immortal realm. He landed on the first step of the long white jade staircase without concealing his human chi. When the 3 demons saw Ning Fan's arrival, all of them were inwardly shocked. When they saw Ning Fan's ghost-faced silver-haired appearance, they were even more shocked. If they were not mistaken, the person in front of them should be the person who Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon had set a hefty bounty for. Should we attack this person? The bounty offered by Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon is extremely high. The weaker one among the three said. Don't. This person's chi is at the mid-true crossing realm. In other words, when this person isn't suppressed by the power of the forbidden immortal realm, his cultivation base is at the mid-shedding void demon realm. The three of us have consumed a lot of our demon chi. Even if we join forces, we might not be able to defeat this person. Instead, we might lose our lives in vain. No matter how high the bounty is, he's not someone we can kill. Let's think about how to protect ourselves if this person attacks us. The three demons' expressions were filled with vigilance. Each of them spread out their spirit sense and secretly locked onto Ning Fan. However, none of them dared to attack Ning Fan. All they did was take out their magic treasures and put on a defensive posture, afraid that Ning Fan would attack them. Just as their spirit sense that was locked onto Ning Fan circled around his body, it was immediately devoured by a domineering invisible suction force. When their spirit sense was devoured, the three of them felt a sharp pain in their sea of consciousness. Their expressions changed drastically. When they looked at Ning Fan again, they were even more fearful and dared not to harm him. As for Ning Fan, it was as if he did not see the three demon cultivators. He just walked up the long white jade staircase step by step. Ning Fan only glanced at the three demon cultivators indifferently. He did not pay too much attention to them, nor did he reveal any killing intent. He was not a person who would kill demons on sight. As long as the other party did not provoke him, he would not simply attack them. Moreover, he was in a hurry to enter the Nine Heavens Imperial Court and take back the souls of the millions of barbarians. Thus, he did not have the time to waste with the three demons. The first step, the second step, the third step, Ning Fan continued to climb upwards at an extremely fast speed. His movement technique was like a phantom. In just a few breaths' time, he had already reached the 782nd step. The aura force that was enough to suppress an early truth-crossing realm expert actually could not slow down his pace. Among the three demons, the yellow-robed demon cultivator with the weakest cultivation base was at the 782nd step. When he saw Ning Fan climb to such a height in just a few breaths' time, his expression changed drastically. According to his speculation, even some late-shedding void realm experts would not be able to climb the white jade stairs as easily as Ning Fan due to the suppression of the forbidden immortal force. He was secretly shocked. Could it be that Ning Fan is a late-shedding void realm old monster? If he really is a late-shedding void realm expert, once he has the intention to kill me, I certainly do not have the strength to resist him, the yellow-robed demon cultivator said to Ning Fan with a nervous expression while retreating. Fellow Taoist, you can't attack me. What you're doing is against the harmony of the heavens. It's against the harmony of the heavens. Even though we are of different races, the heavens have the virtue of cherishing life. You can't. At first, he thought that Ning Fan would definitely attack him. However, Ning Fan did not even look at him. He directly walked past him and continued to climb upwards. This person is an old monster of the human race and his cultivation base is much higher than mine. He actually didn't kill me. How is this possible? The yellow-robed old demon was greatly surprised. With the hatred between the human race and the demon race in the wild wilderness, the other party did not seem to have any reason to let him go. Could it be that this person is in a hurry to enter the Nine Heavens Imperial Court and does not have the time to fight with me? Yes, that must be the case. The more the yellow-robed old demon thought about it, the more he felt that his speculation was correct. Ning Fan continued to climb upwards. At the 826th step, he brushed past the second demon cultivator but he still did not attack him. At the 1106th step, he brushed past the third demon cultivator but he still did not attack him. Only when Ning Fan had climbed above the 2000th step and was already far away from them did the three demon cultivators let out a sigh of relief. After confirming that Ning Fan would not turn around and attack them, they immediately descended the stairs as if they were flying. Ning Fan did not care about their actions. He walked forward like a ghost. In just 10 breaths' time, he had climbed all 3,300 white jade steps and stood outside the palace gate. At this moment, the palace gate was already closed. It was a stone gate that was extremely tall. Under the cover of the white mist, it was impossible to see where the top of the gate was. Every person who attempted to enter the Nine Heavens Imperial Court had to spend the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. They had to bow 330 times towards the palace gate before they could enter. Under the suppression of the forbidden immortal power, only thought fragmentation realm old monsters could ignore this kind of etiquette and directly barge into the palace gate. Ning Fan did not have the mood to bow to a stone gate. He also did not plan to waste the time it takes for an incense stick to burn in this place. He was eager to enter the Nine Heavens Imperial Court and rescue the souls of those barbarians. Thus, he naturally did not want to waste too much time in this place. After giving the stone gate a glance, Ning Fan's body suddenly glowed with a faint red light. He activated the power of his calamity blood and pressed his finger forward. The grade of his calamity blood was already at the 9-star fragmentation realm. With just the power of the calamity sense in his body, he was able to fight against ordinary early and mid-shedding void realm cultivators. Under the suppression of the forbidden immortal power, Ning Fan was able to fight against early and mid-thought fragmentation realm old monsters with just his calamity sense. Just as the three shedding void realm demon cultivators ran down the white jade steps, they suddenly heard a loud bang coming from the palace gate at the top of the stairs. The three demons were greatly shocked. They quickly turned their heads and saw a 1,000 zhang large scarlet finger pressing on the giant gate. That scarlet finger was extremely evil. With just a glance, the three demons instinctively trembled and broke out in cold sweat. It was their first time seeing the power within the finger. It was neither demonic power nor illegal power. As soon as the finger fell, the palace gate of the Nine Heavens Imperial Court was immediately smashed into pieces. As for Ning Fan, he took a step inside. After he stepped inside, the broken stones on the ground flew up and reformed into the palace gate. He broke the palace gate with a single finger. Thought fragmentation realm old monster. That ghost-faced silver-haired cultivator is definitely a human thought fragmentation realm old monster. The expressions of the three demons changed drastically. They were filled with lingering fear. Fortunately, they did not attack Ning Fan. If they did, they would certainly die. The three of them were just early shedding void realm cultivators. Even if they joined forces, how could they be a match for a thought fragmentation realm old monster? At the moment when Ning Fan broke the palace gate with his finger and entered the Nine Heavens Imperial Court, Ning Fan's vague projection appeared on the demon's painted skin. Unfortunately, the projection was extremely blurry. No one could see Ning Fan's appearance clearly. It's already the 7th day. There are actually still people who entered the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. The clan leader of the True Dragon clan glanced at the projection and no longer paid attention to it. He ordered the demon to move the projection to the upper level of the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. The ones who could attract his attention were not Ning Fan who entered the Nine Heavens Imperial Court late but those who had already climbed to the upper level of the Imperial Court. When he saw that the few people who occupied the highest positions were all barbarians, the clan leader of the True Dragon clan snorted coldly. Humph. These barbarian ancestors are really fast. At this speed, they will reach the highest point of the Nine Heavens Imperial Court before the power of the Heaven-Sealing Immortal Edict is exhausted. I didn't expect that the fastest ones are actually these barbarians. At the moment when Ning Fan entered the Nine Heavens Imperial Court, a line of words suddenly appeared on the 135th position on Meng Xuanzi's gigantic green stone tablet. Name cannot be displayed. This person has entered the first level of the Nine Heavens Imperial Court, the first palace. Meng Xuanzi was slightly surprised. Most of the human immortal emperors who were staring at the ancient tablet were also surprised. There were already 134 names on the giant tablet. This time, it was the 135th person who appeared. However, this 135th person had no name or surname. Why can't this person's name be displayed? The ancient reaching heaven emperor frowned slightly and asked Meng Xuanzi. Currently, there were already 135 people who had successfully entered the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. However, among them, only the 7th barbarian ancestor's position could not be displayed. Now, there was another person whose name could not be displayed. The cautious ancient reaching heaven emperor naturally wanted to know the reason. This person's name cannot be displayed. It must be because he is wearing a secret treasure that can conceal his identity and appearance. Meng Xuanzi answered. Is that so? The ancient reaching heaven emperor said indifferently. The 135th person who entered the Nine Heavens Imperial Court was naturally Ning Fan. Because Ning Fan was wearing an innate ghost mask, his name could not be displayed. The ancient reaching heaven emperor did not pay too much attention to this cultivator whose name could not be displayed. His eyes were more focused on the few people who were ranked at the top. The 6 Unity Immortal Venerables were ranked 7th. Their current position was the 57th palace on the 5th level of the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. Venerable Miao Yen was ranked 8th. His current position was the 22nd palace on the 5th level. The 6th place was Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon of the Demon Race. His current position was the 93rd palace on the 5th level. The 5th place was Ao Xian. He had already entered the 6th level. His current position was the 12th palace on the 6th level. The 4th place wasn't the demon race or the human race, but the 4 barbarian ancestors of the desolate land. Among the 4 barbarian ancestors, the 7th barbarian ancestor's position was the highest. He had already entered the 72nd palace on the 7th level. Could it be that the barbarian race will be the first to reach the top? The ancient reaching heaven emperor frowned slightly and muttered. However, a moment later, the ancient reaching heaven emperor exclaimed softly and shifted his gaze to the nameless cultivator who was ranked last. In just 10 breaths' time, the nameless cultivator's position had already broken through from the 1st palace on the 1st level to the 19th palace. Such a speed of breaking through palaces was rare. Only the 4 barbarian ancestors, Ao Xian, Poisonous Dragon, Lu He, Miao Yen and the other immortal venerables who had entered the early heavens imperial court could achieve such speed. Could this person also be a cultivator from the ancient times? Strange. According to this old man's deduction, there shouldn't be such a cultivator from the ancient times in the desolate land. I can't see his name. Who could he be? The ancient reaching heaven emperor muttered. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.